Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 6 of What If Naruto Was Reborn. With all his memories. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. Naruto grinned to himself as he made his way back towards his apartment. Man, did he feel great. Even with thoughts of Orochimaru's invasion looming over his head, he couldn't help but smile about how today had gone. Hee, I had a date with Hinata. Naruto laughed in a sing-song voice as if he was bragging to himself. Granted, it wasn't as long as he may have wanted it to be, and Hanabi's interruption had been unexpected, but everything worked out in the end. Not only that, but Hanabi's words and Naruto's vocal acknowledgement of her as a person really struck a chord with Hinata. Naruto had always thought that Hinata had put her all into their training, but she was literally throwing everything she had into it now. It was almost scary how quickly she seemed to be progressing all of a sudden. Her style and form was already perfect, but Hinata's lack of strength and occasional tendency to second-guess and demean herself would often throw her off balance. However, it was different now. She didn't stop and stutter when she made a mistake, nor did she start apologizing every time she got a hit on him in their spars. After weeks of trying, Naruto thought he had finally brought out the confident Hinata he knew from the past. Naruto cracked his neck a bit while he touched certain parts on his arms and stomach where bruises were healing up. He was happy that Hinata had been kind enough to unseal his tenketsu after they had finished training. Though, even with his healing factor, it left him quite sore afterwards. Almost makes me happy I'm not fighting Neji in the finals this time around. Naruto mused to himself. Hyugas are scary fighters. Naruto, still feeling quite happy with himself, ran the rest of the way to his house. Today had been an excellent day, and finishing it off with one of Uzora's dinner meals would be the perfect way to end it. He bounded up the steps that led to his room and practically kicked open the door. I'm home, Naruto shouted enthusiastically as he entered his home. Silence was his only greeting. Uzura. Naruto glanced into the kitchen, finding it completely vacant. Haku was absent again as well. Naruto stood in the kitchen for a few moments before giving a helpless shrug. Whatever, she's probably just running errands or something, Naruto said to himself as he opened the pantry to make himself some ramen. Naruto turned his head when he heard the door open and close. He called out to the new arrival without turning away from the meal he was preparing for himself. Welcome back. You want some ramen? Naruto offered. I suppose. Thank you. Naruto blinked when a voice more monotone than he expected answered him. The blonde finally turned his head to see Gaara standing in the doorway. Naruto frowned. Oh, hey, Gaara. You sound disappointed, expecting someone else. Naruto chuckled to himself as Gaara sat down at the table. For the past few days Gaara had been staying in one of the spare bedrooms in his apartment, mostly due to the fact that Gaara had been taking advantage of his newfound ability to have naps and he couldn't fall asleep anywhere else without people finding out. Naruto had been more than happy to accommodate his friend, who had been grateful to accept Naruto's hospitality. Gaara would still occasionally check in with his siblings, but only to reassure them that he hadn't disappeared or started slaughtering anyone in the village. Nah, I was just wondering where Uzura was, is all. She's usually home this time of day. Naruto answered the Ikibi container as he added more ramen to the pot. He glanced out the window, noting how the sunset filtering through the forest tress painted quite a scene. He sat down next to Gaara as the pot started to boil. So, what did you do today? I accompanied Lee-san on a few errands today after breakfast. Gaara replied. He even introduced me to his teammate Tenten and his rather eccentric sensei. Hey, have fun with that, Naruto laughed. Guy-san is a very enthusiastic person, Gaara said delicately. Tenten-san is also good company. And both of them were surprisingly forgiving about what I did to Lee-san. Naruto opened his mouth to respond when the sound of the door opening and closing again cut him off. Is anyone home? A tentative voice asked uncertainly. In here. Uzura sighed as she stepped inside the kitchen, greeting her master with a bow and smiling at Gaara. Naruto waved to her while Gaara stared for a few moments before nodding towards the girl. Anything interesting happened today, Uzura-san? Gaara asked the girl. Uzura shuffled her feet a bit in response to Gaara's question, relaxing her grip on her kodachi. The Ikibi Jinchuriki stared at the girl suspiciously, noting the dirt on her kimono. Naruto was oblivious to this exchange, completely dedicated to making his ramen and happily reflecting on the day's events. Nothing that you should concern yourself with, Gaara-san. Today was rather uneventful. Uzura smiled. I can handle myself, and I assure you any troubles I have I can take care of myself. I'm not a helpless little girl, you know. I was only asking. Gaara responded as Yujiro gripped the hilt of her sword to emphasize her point. No need to be so defensive. I wasn't being. Ramen's ready. Naruto's cheerful voice broke through their exchange as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki placed a bowl of ramen in front of Gaara. The blonde grinned at Yujiro as he sat down with his own bowl. The fox girl blinked when a steaming bowl of ramen was held out in front of her. The girl started uncertainly. It's for you, Naruto said, rolling his eyes a bit. You've probably been out all day, right? I thought that I could make you some food to eat when you got home. Oh, Yujiro flushed a bit at her master's kindness, but quickly waved him off. It's fine, Naruto-sama. The thought is appreciated, but you shouldn't have. An audible growling noise resounded through the kitchen. Gaara arched an eyebrow at Yujiro while Naruto tried to keep himself from laughing. Yujiro held a hand to her stomach, her red face clearly showing her embarrassment. I don't want it to go to waste. Naruto smirked. Why yes. Thank you, Yujiro nodded, taking the bowl and sitting down in the seat next to him. I'm sorry I came home so late. Hey, what you do on your own time isn't something I should poke into, but didn't you eat at all today? Naruto asked. Well, sometimes errands take time to complete, Yujiro said as she shifted in her eat. I didn't really have time to stop by anywhere. Even so, you should at least take the time to eat. Naruto chided between mouthfuls of ramen. Did you train with Haku again? You've got some dirt on your clothes there. Oh, so I do, Yujiro said stiffly, slowly rising from her seat. Excuse me for a moment. I'll eat after I've cleaned myself up a bit. Yujiro gave the duo a quick bow before quickly stepping into her room and shutting the door behind her. Gaara glanced towards Naruto, frowning when the Kyuubi Jinchuriki did nothing more than shrug and continue with his meal. Gaara let out a quiet sigh as he began to eat his ramen, marveling that after all this time Naruto could still be rather dense. Well, Yujiro was by no means, as she said, a weak girl. She could take care of herself. He just hoped she wouldn't be too reluctant to ask for help if she needed it. XXXXX. Day 15. Naruto felt every muscle in his body tighten up as he called upon the Kyuubi's chakra. Sweat trickled down his brow as he tried to hold on to what little control he had. He was finally beginning to grasp it. If he tried hard enough, he could keep his chakra system from crashing. He tried his best to remember everything Hinata and Sakura had told him about controlling his chakra. It's okay. I got this. I can do this, Naruto thought vigorously as he felt the immense power of the Kyuubi course through his body. He was working on controlling the Kyuubi's chakra that was his, today with Yamato's help. Normally he'd be training with Jiraiya, but the man was meeting with the Hokage and a few others to get tips on where a certain buxom teammate of his may be. Naruto had been left in Yamato's care for the day. Very good, Naruto. Keep it up, Yamato praised. I'm going to give full control over to you bit by bit, okay? Just tell me if you feel your control slipping at all. Here we go. Naruto's eyes shot open when he felt his control fluctuate as Yamato eased up on his chakra. Naruto screwed his eyes shut once again as he tried to get the chakra under his control. Slowly but surely, he felt the chakra flowing and surging throughout his body. He would feel pangs and tugs when the chakra started to resist or when his control started weakening, but Naruto kept on concentrating. Good work, Naruto. The boy blinked when he heard Yamato say that. He slowly looked down at himself and stared at his clawed fingertips. I did it, Naruto gasped, flexing his fingers as he felt the power of the Kyuubi surge through his body. He threw a few quick punches and jabs, testing the power behind them. A large grin suddenly broke out on Naruto's face. I feel great, Naruto thought ecstatically as he threw in a few kicks to his routine. I feel like I could take on Akatsuki without breaking a sweat. He knew that was an extreme over-exaggeration, but the thought was nice. He felt better than great though. Naruto marveled at the power he suddenly felt. He had used the Kyuubi's chakra plenty of times in his past life, but never had he felt anything like this. It didn't feel like he was borrowing the chakra or struggling to pull it out from anywhere. It just felt natural. It was like the power was his own instead of something he borrowed. Was it because the Kyuubi's chakra was now technically his? Was it because he was controlling it by himself? Was this how the Kyuubi felt whenever he used his chakra? Suddenly he felt that some of the demon's arrogance was justified. Hell, if this was how much chakra the fox had naturally, and Naruto was only using a fraction of it, he could see why demons considered humans beneath them. Not that he felt like bragging or being an arrogant prick all of a sudden. Naruto just felt surprised, is all. How do you feel? Yamato asked curiously. He had lowered his hand and left the control to Naruto. Fantastic, Naruto shouted, and he bounced up and down enthusiastically. Yamato chuckled a bit. Even though the whisker marks, sharpened canines, and clawed hands were intimidating, the way Naruto was acting didn't make him seem threatening at all. I feel like running all the way to Kumo or Suna. I bet I could do it too. In a day. This is the first step. Yamato smiled at the exuberant genin. Now that you've gotten some control over the Kyuubi's chakra, you should be able to harness the rest more easily than before. There's more. Naruto grinned from ear to ear. How much was he using now? Naruto could hardly begin to think of the possibilities for what he could do with so much chakra. Not only that, but this feeling really made him hope. He had been uncertain and hesitant before, but now he was confident. It was the first time in a long time that he felt truly, carelessly confident. Just like how he used to feel in the past. I bet I could break a boulder with my bare hands. Naruto whooped. Heck, he was in his initial Jinchuriki form and had been able to break Haku's mirrors in it, so who knows what he could do. He made a break for the wood pillar boundaries. Wait, Naruto, don't. Yamato called out to him. It was too late. Naruto's excited expression changed into one of surprised shock when he stepped past one of the wooden pillars, and his precious control, along with that amazing feeling of energy and power, abruptly disappeared from him. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki fell flat on his face. What? Naruto stammered as he pushed himself back up. He whirled around towards Yamato with a desperate look on his face. Why did I? You were able to use some of the Kyuubi's chakra and maintain control without my help, and that is a great accomplishment, but, Yamato started with an empathetic smile. You're still required to stand within my control boundaries if you wish to maintain what little control you have. What? But that's... Calm down. You can still use the Kyuubi's chakra just fine, Yamato said in a placatory tone. All I'm saying is that you need a little more work to draw upon the chakra naturally and without strain. Once you gain more stable control, you'll be able to maintain control without my help whatsoever. Will I even be able to use the chakra before the exams start? Naruto deadpanned. Don't sound so discouraged. This is a huge leap for us, believe it or not. Yamato assured him with a smile. Now that you've been able to do it once, the rest should come much more easily. The confident, assuring way Yamato said it managed to make the Kyuubi container smile. Naruto nodded determinedly, stepping back inside the pillars, and proceeded to gather up his chakra once again. XXXXX. Day 18. Sorry Sakura, but it looks like that teacher I had planned to get you may not be able to teach you before the finals start. Kakashi said apologetically as he casually blocked a kick from Sasuke. Oh, that's okay, sensei, Sakura assured him, though there was a hint of disappointment in her voice. Could you at least tell me who you planned for it to be? I wouldn't want to add to your disappointment. Kakashi smiled underneath his mask. Besides, there is still a chance she'll train you. She just won't be able to make it for the Chunin exams. You're certainly adding to my curiosity though, Sakura groaned as she watched Kakashi and Sasuke spar. Naruto gave her a reassuring pat on the back. He had decided to spend some time with his teammates and train with them and Kakashi for the day. It's fine, Sakura, even without her help, I'm sure you'll do great. Says the guy who's getting trained by one of the Sannin. Sakura retorted, giving her blonde teammate a jealous glare. When Sasuke and Sakura had found out Naruto had been getting training from Jiraiya, one of Konoha's 3 Sannin and a man who had been Orochimaru's teammate, they had been very jealous. Sasuke had immediately left to double his training efforts after he had given them the news, while Sakura demanded to know how he got one of the Sannin to train him. Naruto's only answer had been that the man had owed him for something he wouldn't say and had convinced the Toad Sage to train him for the finals. He also added that Kakashi's vouching for him had helped. Would it be any consolation if I told you the guy was a pervert who constantly peeps on women in the bath while calling it research? Naruto asked. Peeping on research, Sakura exclaimed, appalled by this new information. Weren't the Sannin respected for being the most powerful ninja? That should have meant that they behaved in a way that made it seem like they deserved that respect. How is that research? It's valuable research, when it comes to writing that, Naruto said, pointing at the orange novel that was poking out of Kakashi's pocket. You mean, he's the pervert who writes those things? Sakura asked indignantly. Don't take it out on me. I'm just the student, Naruto insisted, backing away in fear when he saw Sakura's fist twitching. Then again, Jiraiya was actually taking the time to train Naruto now since they were exercising the whole godson-godfather relationship. The man was no longer neglecting training him in favor of peeping, and thankfully the Toad Sannin had never once mentioned Naruto's Warok no Jutsu. He was actually taking the time to refine Naruto's fighting style and teach him valuable jutsu, something Naruto had to beg and coax the man to do in their past life. Of course, one thing that had been a huge disappointment to Naruto was his sage mode. When he had brought it up to Jiraiya, the man had informed him that they couldn't start the sage training unless they were on Mount Myoboku, which had the special toad oil needed to allow natural energy to enter one's body. Not only that, but Jiraiya had stated that he honestly thought that Naruto didn't meet the qualifications for sage training yet, not when he was back to being a kid again and was having problems controlling the Kyuubi's chakra by himself. Even if they could start sage training, it was too much of a risk since Naruto could turn into a toad statue without proper supervision. Without Fukasaku watching over him and constantly beating him over the head with that special scepter of his, Naruto might screw up while gathering natural energy. No, for now it was better to wait until Naruto matured before starting his sage training. He was extremely disappointed, but Naruto figured that having some of the Kyuubi's chakra to use whenever he wanted almost made up for it. Now that he thought of the old pervert, Jiraiya was actually planning on leaving tomorrow to look for Tsunade and Shizune. He wasn't sure when he'd get back, but he promised that it would be before the invasion started. Unfortunately, he also said that he probably wouldn't be back soon enough to get Sakura the teacher she needed. Or maybe he's just saying that so he can make up for his lack of research at a hot spring somewhere. Naruto thought to himself. Now, Sakura, every author has his own method of writing and inspiration comes easier in certain environments. Kakashi told his irate student, giggling to himself as he thought about a certain passage in his book. The stories are really well written. You're actually approving of a pervert's actions. If it gives me something good to read, the copy nin trailed off. I want a new sensei, Sakura moaned. Enough about the books, Sasuke grunted as he threw another punch, which Kakashi blocked. If sensei wants to spend his time reading smut, who are we to stop him? Oh, Kakashi said, catching the Uchiha's fist. You're one to talk. Huh. Kakashi suddenly grabbed the boy's shoulders and brought his knee into the boy's gut. After being winded by his teacher's blow, Kakashi tossed Sasuke into the air and brought his foot down, bringing Sasuke to the ground. And from the Uchiha's pocket, a small orange book fell to the ground. The silence was deafening. Naruto and Sakura simply stared at their teammate with shocked expressions while the boy's expression switched from pain to alarmed. Anyone could tell that Kakashi was grinning smugly from beneath his mask. He was annoyed when I started reading it during one of our training sessions and demanded to know what it was about the books that made them more interesting than training. Kakashi explained, breaking the silence. So, I let my curious student borrow one of my books. Reading helps the mind grow, after all. There was a pregnant pause before Sasuke finally spoke. It's really well written, the Uchiha insisted, turning his head away as his cheeks turned pink with embarrassment and humiliation. Sasuke-kun. Sakura gaped at him, looking between him and their sensei. Inside her mind, inner Sakura was screaming. No, damn it, damn you, sensei, damn you and your porn. Damn porn to hell, you corrupted my precious Sasuke-kun. You turned him into a pervert. Damn you. It was then that Naruto chose the wrong time to speak. Hey, gotta admit that Ero-sensei's books really are a big success. Naruto nearly shit his pants at the amount of killing intent he suddenly felt. Don't tell me, you read those books too, Sakura snarled, turning her head towards her blonde teammate as she raised her fist. And no, well, maybe a few chapters, but he made me. They aren't that bad though, and you shouldn't be so. Naruto. Ah. XXXXX. Day 19. You're leaving then? Naruto asked. Yep, I've gotta go out and find her before the finals come around. Jiraiya smiled down at his godson. It was still a week and a half before the finals would start, and while Jiraiya would have normally stayed around to train Naruto up until the day before the exams, he had to leave to go find the person who would definitely help them out during the invasion. It would be best if he found her before the invasion started, so he'd have to leave early enough so he could get back. Naruto and Kakashi had arrived to see the Toad Sannin off. Naruto was saying his goodbyes while Kakashi leaned against the gate with his favorite issue of Ika Ika in his hand. Do you think Ba-chan will listen? Naruto asked his godfather. I mean, One of the reasons she even came back to Konoha was because of me. Shouldn't I tag along? Plus, Naruto really wanted to see Tsunade and Shizune again. I can handle my old teammate just fine without your help. Jiraiya chuckled. I'm sure I'll be able to convince that stubborn, buxom woman to come back to Konoha. She's neglected her duties as godmother for far too long. Naruto gave a sad smile at that. Jiraiya patted the boy on the shoulder with an uncharacteristic look of sympathy on his face. Naruto was happy that he reunited with so many of his loved ones, but it was a constant punch to the gut every time he thought of all the people who had abandoned him due to their own grievances, or neglected to tell him of his parents for some reason or another. Kakashi, Jiraiya and even Tsunade. Any one of the three would have been perfectly capable of taking care of him but chose not to. Don't be too hard on her, kid. Jiraiya sighed. Minato and Kushina was one thing, but she had lost her brother and Dan as well. I saw my best friends killed in front of me in the past and that's not stopping me now, is it? Naruto retorted, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. Naruto. I know, I've already forgiven you guys, but don't blame me if I get angry about it once in a while. Naruto sighed. He smiled cheekily at his godfather. Just bring her back quick, okay? Can do. Jiraiya nodded, ruffling the kid's hair affectionately. He smiled up at Kakashi. Hold down the fort for me, okay? You can count on us. Just promise not to get distracted by a few short skirts on your trip, the copy ninja said teasingly. I'll try my best. Jiraiya laughed. He gave a double thumbs up and a bright smile. The gallant Jiraiya, away. The man disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto and Kakashi stood in silence at the village gates for a moment. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki yawned and stretched his arms before turning back towards Kakashi. Well, now that Ero-sensei's gone I'm gonna drop by Ichiraku's for some lunch. Wanna come with me, Kakashi-sensei? Are you still bothered by it? Naruto blinked at the question. Kakashi turned away from his student and scratched the back of his head uneasily. About us? Abandoning you, I mean. Naruto stared at the man for a moment before giving a careless shrug and looking off into the distance with a thoughtful expression on his face. I'll probably always be bothered by it. You guys had a duty to my parents and to me, but it's your fault my childhood was so painful and empty. I didn't have anyone to look out for me. Kakashi cringed a bit at that. While the words were harsh and aimed at him directly, he couldn't deny them. He could have done so much for him so much earlier. But if I spent all my time trying to get over every tragic detail and aspect in my life I wouldn't get anywhere. It's in the past, and I've already forgiven you for it. Naruto smiled. At least you're trying to make up for it now, right? You're way too forgiving, Naruto. Kakashi chuckled under his mask. Meh, I don't really hold grudges too well. Naruto shrugged, giving Kakashi a sheepish look. I've learned that it's better to focus on the present rather than linger on the past. Kakashi smiled as he snapped his Ika Ika book shut. Maybe it was time he followed his student's example. Well then, how about I tell you a few stories about your father? Kakashi offered, making Naruto's eyes widen. Really, you will? Naruto asked eagerly before calming down a bit. He remembered their conversation from the past. Isn't it painful for you to remember? Nah, I've spent too much time mourning and I've missed out on a lot because of it. Kakashi smiled. Minato-sensei and Obito would have wanted me to laugh and smile when I remembered them. Besides, I like to think that the good memories outweigh the bad ones. And you really do deserve to know more about your family. Kakashi-sensei. And trust me, this story is a funny one. Kakashi chuckled. It's actually about how your father proposed to your mom. Kakashi was sure that now he could look back on those days with a smile. XXXXX. Day 21. Just take it easy for a few weeks and you should regain full mobility of your arms in no time. The nurse told Zaku as he was wheeled out of the hospital in a wheelchair. He didn't really see the point of it since his legs worked fine, but the nurse insisted it's what they did for most patients. Kin and Naruto found it hilarious. Zaku turned back to look at Naruto who was opening the door for Kin like a good gentleman while he laughed at some joke she was telling him. The way his teammate was pointing at him as she said it pissed him off, but he couldn't say anything that would make them stop. He was the cripple with unusable arms at their mercy for the moment. He'd get them back, though. Oh, yes, he'd get them back. We hope you enjoyed your stay, Zaku-san. We hope to see you back here soon. The nurse smiled, giving him a quick bow before walking past Naruto and Kin and back into the building. As soon as she was gone Zaku jumped out of the wheelchair and kicked it off to the side with an annoyed grunt to the amusement of Kin and Naruto. The boy grumbled under his breath as the two approached him. Why the hell would she say, "We hope to see you back here soon," as a goodbye? Does she want me to get hurt again? Zaku scoffed. Don't think about it too much. I'm sure she was trying to be friendly. Naruto said. Yeah, well, she sucked at it. As they made their way out of the hospital complex, Zaku stole a few glances at the blonde walking beside him. It was weird. The boy had actually come to visit him a number of times since that first day he decided to. He just couldn't come up with a reason. Sure, they talked a few times, but what was his motive? What was he trying to accomplish by interacting with him and Kin? Because we're friends. That had been his answer when Zaku asked. He just couldn't figure this guy out. What reason did this guy have for being so friendly with a stranger? So, to celebrate your release from the hospital, how about I take you guys to Ichiraku's? Ramen tastes great when you're recovering from a battle. Zaku chuckled to himself. Ah well, he liked the kid. He was a friend. Ramen actually doesn't sound so bad, Kin put in. Any objections, Zaku? I'll take anything over crummy hospital food, Zaku said. He grinned at Naruto. Lead the way, Blondie. Oh, what's up, Dosu? Kin's sudden greeting got Naruto and Zaku's attention. Indeed, the mummy was slowly making his way towards them. The genin seemed surprised, though Zaku and Kin could guess why since he was staring at Naruto. You too, what are you doing with him? Dosu asked cautiously. He is taking us out to eat. Kin smiled, grabbing onto the boy's arm even as he protested. What are you doing here? Yeah, you didn't even bother to come visit me, you bastard. Zaku smirked with no bite in his tone. Too busy training to pay a visit to your teammate. I can't spend all my free time checking up on you. Dosu sighed. He glanced at Naruto again. And, why are you here? I'm taking them out to eat. Naruto replied, repeating Kin's words. Celebration for Zaku's recovery. His arms are still in casts. Fine, his release, Naruto restated. I see. Dosu trailed off. He was a little bewildered. This was the kid he'd be facing off against in the finals. He remembered talking with him a few times, but when had he gotten so friendly with his teammates? The way Kin was holding onto him and the way Zaku was smiling clearly conveyed their happiness. Why were they fraternizing with the enemy? Dosu felt so confused. Naruto had similar thoughts. He really didn't know why he started talking to the sound ninja. They just seemed so happy when he had told them they were friends, the thought that maybe a few more visits wouldn't hurt. To Naruto's surprise, he had actually found that they were really decent people. Zaku could act like a kid with his complaints, but his boastful yet joking personality kinda reminded him of Kiba. Kin was a very forward girl and didn't seem to mind what others thought of her, always being very blunt with her thoughts and opinions, something Naruto respected. In the time he came to visit, he had truly come to see them as friends. Naruto counted them among the people he wanted to save during the invasion. He didn't want any Konoha ninja to kill them. And Zaku and Kin clearly enjoyed his company, so why not add one more person to that list while he was at it? Naruto smiled at Dosu, who blinked in response. Wanna come with us? With Zaku's taunts and Kin's pulling him along, Dosu couldn't exactly refuse. XXXXX. Day 23. Gaara watched Naruto spar with Yamato's wood clones from his sitting position near the edge of the training grounds. Yamato stood next to the Suna ninja, watching the blonde destroy clone after clone with an approving smile on his face. The Aikibi container and the Mokuden user could feel Naruto's intense chakra come off him in waves as he smashed each clone to pieces. The boy's claws, heightened reflexes, and increased strength given to him by using the Kyuubi's chakra for himself seemed to unlock a new, more feral fighting style for him. Yamato's clones worked together well, and each one of them had a great affinity for independent action, but Naruto tore through each of them like rice paper. Naruto-kun really is something, Yamato said aloud as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki got down on all fours and plowed into the nearest wood clone, claws first. Even if his control was barely minimal at first, he can use a good amount of the Kyuubi's chakra now without my help. He was able to take that small success and turn it into this. Naruto let out an enthusiastic battle cry as he came down on one clone with an axe kick. His foot carved through the clone right down the middle. The boy no longer needed the wood pillars to keep a hold of his chakra control when using the Kyuubi's chakra anymore. He wasn't even using half of the chakra available to him, but it was still an astounding accomplishment nonetheless. I haven't met anyone with the determination or drive Naruto has. Gaara murmured. If there is a technique he lacks skill in, He will keep working on it until he has mastered it, especially if he has a good reason to. Preparing for the invasion is that reason? Yamato asked. I'm sure that's one of them. Naruto and Kakashi had already told Yamato of the invasion plans, and the man was more than happy to lend his assistance, agreeing to keep quiet about it and to help them with training and controlling their demons. Gaara, after a few days of leisure, had decided to join Naruto in his training. The Sunanin had decided that he would gain control over the Aikibi and use its power to fight Orochimaru alongside Naruto. The blonde had been hesitant, noting that Gaara had never willingly used the Aikibi's chakra, nor had Gaara even once contacted the demon after meeting Naruto. Gaara would accept no arguments, and made a promise to Naruto that the Aikibi would be under his control before the finals. Of course, Yamato would be able to use the Mokuden to contain Gaara if he had any problems with the Aikibi. And while Yamato was a valuable ally and someone who had supported Naruto in the past, he had also decided not to give him back his memories. It wasn't that he didn't trust Yamato, but rather Naruto didn't want to burden people with the harsh memories of the past nor the shame of his failure when so many had died fighting alongside him. Plus, Yamato's harsh and traumatizing experience from when Madara was using him as a tool to create an endless army of Zetsu clones wasn't something Naruto wanted him to remember. Not everyone needed to remember the past. Naruto was perfectly willing to carry that burden on his own. But Naruto has something to prove to himself as well, Gaara continued as he stood up. Yamato gave him a puzzled look. He wants to prove that he can protect the people close to him. He wants to prove that he's worthy of the title of Hokage. Controlling the Kyuubi's chakra that he has at his disposal is the first step, and defeating Orochimaru will be the next. Gaara turned towards Yamato, showing his own resolve with a determined expression. And if I want to stand beside my friend in the future and help him shoulder his burdens, then I must also take that first step. Gaara declared, I will not be afraid of the beast that lives inside me anymore. Yamato just stared at the boy in silent awe. The man chuckled under his breath. I wonder if it's strange for me to have so much faith in these boys when I've only known them for a few days. Yamato thought to himself, Kakashi-senpai knows some amazing kids. Well, then how about I help you take that first step? Yamato smiled as he summoned a few wood pillars from the ground. He extended his hand towards Gaara, showing off the kanji for sit painted on his palm. At your ready, Gaara-san. Gaara nodded and closed his eyes, reaching deep within himself to grasp the power that lay dormant within him. A loud, booming cry that almost sounded like a laugh exploded in his eardrums. Gaara opened his eyes to see a vast desert set before him. From inside a large cage the Aikibi no Shukaku gave out another crying roar. Gaara crossed his arms as his familiar, stoic battle expression made its way onto his face. He wouldn't run from his inner demon. The beast had harassed him and deprived him of precious, blissful sleep for too many years. Always demanding blood or pretending to be his deceased mother. Now it was his turn to demand something from the demon. XXXXX. Day 24. Leaving already, Hinata-sama. The Hyuga heiress jumped when a familiar stoic voice broke through her thoughts. The girl turned towards the person who had addressed her, who was casually leaning against the wall with a look of disdain painted on his face. Neji Nisan. You finished your training with your team just an hour ago, did you not? The boy asked, shooting the heiress one of his trademark glares. He resisted the urge to snort in disgust when she turned away from him. Do you have errands to run? Yes, the girl nodded meekly. I actually have somewhere I need to be right now, so. Does your father know? Neji asked, trying to keep himself from smirking when he saw her stiffen. I just couldn't help but notice that you've been out of the house quite frequently as of late. I remember Hiyashi-sama mentioning your absence and was curious if he knew where you've gone. There are some things I wish to keep private from my father, Nisan. Hinata said quietly. He doesn't control every aspect of my life. I don't need to trouble him by asking for permission for everything I do. It annoyed Neji now that she was looking back at him now. It was also annoying how her stutter had disappeared, or how straight and strong her posture was nowadays. She's been getting stronger, Neji thought with disdain. It wasn't much, but it was still something. More than he thought possible too. It made him angry. He wasn't so sure if he could call her a weakling anymore. Could it be training for the finals? Neji asked. Perhaps. The quick, vague answer annoyed him. The sentence that followed it made him even more so. You needn't concern yourself with everything I do either, Nisan. I am perfectly capable of handling myself. He clenched his teeth. Well then, Hinata-sama, Neji spat, stressing the honorific and smirking when she turned away from him again. I wouldn't want to keep you then. Thank you, Hinata said, giving the boy a quick bow and headed towards the door again. You will lose. Neji spoke up again, making the girl stop as she placed her hand on the door. No matter what you do or how hard you try, that fact is inevitable. It is your fate to be defeated by me, Hinata-sama. He spoke the words with such finality and confidence. It was not unexpected when he blinked at the glare Hinata shot back at him. I wouldn't be so sure about that, Nisan. Hinata replied with a tone he had never heard from her before. Neji blinked in astonishment. Was he imagining it? Did the frail, useless heiress just glare at him? He blinked again when her familiar, cowering expression covered Hinata's face. If you'll excuse me, I should really be on my way. The door slammed shut behind her as she left. Neji stared at the door for a few moments before growling under his breath and retreating towards the courtyard. Training was the best way to work off his frustrations anyway. XXXXX. Day 27. Tamari glanced about the marketplace with a look of mild interest on her face. Konoha was so different from Suna in every way. The obvious things that stood out was the lack of sand covering the place and the overabundance of trees, but people seemed really happy here. People didn't mind conversing one another in the marketplace and a variety of product and produce up for sale. Not that Suna didn't, but living in such a dry, sandy environment really didn't appeal to a lot of people. Konoha's a nice place, Tamari admitted to herself. Too bad it would be destroyed. The wind mistress sighed, recalling why she had gone out. It wasn't just she could enjoy a pleasant walk through the soon-to-be-destroyed village. No, her original objective made her grimace and shiver. She had to find Gaara. Baki-sensei had commented during breakfast that Gaara had been missing for more than a week. He had not checked in at the inn they were staying at, nor had anyone really seen much of the boy. After Konkuro and Tamari had confessed that they hadn't seen much of their brother either, Baki decided to send her out to look for her sociopath of a brother. She didn't have to bring him back with her though. She only had to make sure he hadn't killed anyone or causing any trouble. That really didn't do anything to relieve her though. That is amazing, Gaara-san. Tamari fell over when she heard the excited shout, causing a few villagers to arch their eyebrows in concern at her. The girl quickly jumped to her feet and quickly scanned the area for whoever said that. She eventually honed in on the shouting voice. The sight that greeted her was surprising, if not extremely frightening. Her brother sat at a stand that appeared to be some kind of open barbecue. He was calmly eating meat and roast without a care in the world, even as a trail of sand whipped around a bit from his gourd. The three people that sat next to him further contributed to her shock. There was the kid in green spandex whom Gaara had fought in the preliminaries, speaking animatedly with the boy to Tamari's surprise. To Gaara's other side sat a girl with her hair up in buns, who Tamari instantly recognized as the girl she had fought in her preliminary match. And last but not least was their sensei, who sat to his mini-clone's right, making her shudder at the amount of tight green that covered his body. There was only one question Tamari was to ask, or shout. Why the hell was Gaara hanging around these people? So not only does it act as an automatic guard, but you can control your sand as well. The boy, Lee, if she remembered correctly, asked her brother excitedly. Instead of killing the boy, Gaara simply nodded. Amazing, truly and utterly youthful and amazing, Lee declared, making Tamari's ears throb at the volume of his voice. Maybe not to the extent Lee is saying, but that's a pretty nifty ability you have there, Gaara. The girl, Tenten, remarked with a smile. It's the perfect tool, a great defense and a great weapon. It is, Gaara agreed, conversing with the girl. It's a near invincible technique. It's the reason no one has ever been able to touch me. Tamari's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates when the Tenten girl raised a delicate finger in the air and poked Gaara in the cheek. I touched you, Tenten said simply. She's gonna die, Tamari screamed fearfully in her mind. She fought the urge to slap herself to try and dispel whatever illusion she was trapped in when Gaara did nothing to hurt the girl. Number one has been able to touch me in a battle, Gaara restated as Tenten pushed on his cheek a bit. Though, even now, you're not technically touching me. What are you talking about? Tenten asked, bringing her finger away from his face. Only then did she notice some sand fall away from his face. Her eyes widened. No way. You even use your sand as armor. Guy shouted, standing up from his chair. He laughed and grasped Lee's shoulder, who turned to him with sparkles in his eyes. Lee, you have found yourself the most youthful of rivals. I know, Lee exclaimed. I shall work hard so that one day I shall be able to touch Gaara-san myself. Don't say such disgusting things, Lee-san. Gaara sighed as Tenten giggled beside him. Couldn't he have at least said it in a way that didn't sound so weird? I'll break through your impenetrable defenses. When I am in top condition, we will do battle and I will show you how youthful my taijutsu is. Lee said, completely ignoring Gaara's comment. To prepare for that day, I shall run 200 laps around Konoha on my hands. If I cannot do that, I shall do 500 push-ups without my hands. If I cannot do that, then I will. Gee Gaara. The Aikibi container blinked when he heard his sister's stuttering voice calling from behind him. He, along with the assembled group, turned towards Tamari who was gaping at them like a fish. Gaara felt Tenten stiffen from beside him, but the girl quickly relaxed. Lee and Guy simply smiled at the girl, vaguely remembering who the girl was. Nei-san. Gaara nodded towards her in greeting. Is there something you needed? Tamari was on the verge of screaming. Not only was Gaara talking and eating with these people like he was an old friend of theirs, but he had actually greeted her politely. To add to her shock, she could feel no killing intent at all from her brother. He seemed completely at ease. Hell, he even looked relaxed. Tamari was unsure about what she would do. Was she dreaming? She had to be. Her legs shook as she tried to deny that her brother, the sociopathic container of the Aikibi no Shukaku, was acting like a decent human being. Tamari jumped when Gaara opened his mouth to speak. Would you like to join us for lunch? That did it. After sputtering wordlessly for a few moments, Tamari took off down the road, never once looking back. That was your sister, Gaara-san? Guy asked with a big smile on his face. The way she runs makes her seem so energetic. Though it looks like she'd seen a ghost. She's been a little stressed out about the finals lately. Pay it no mind, Gaara replied casually as he turned back towards his meal. Unnoticed to all around him, Gaara allowed a small smile to rise to his face before it was replaced with his usual mask of impassiveness. At least this way, his sister could get used to the idea that he wasn't as bloodthirsty as he used to be. XXXXX. Day 28. Naruto yawned as he made his way towards the training grounds. He felt exhausted. The entire month had consisted of him bouncing between his training and spending his limited free time with his friends. Even while he was enjoying himself, the thought of the invasion still weighed on his shoulders, but every time he started thinking negatively he constantly reminded himself that he was as prepared could get. He was certainly more prepared than he was in his past life. His fighting style and taijutsu was improved, his library of jutsu had increased, and now he could call upon part of the Kyuubi's power whenever he wanted. Maybe, just maybe, he'd be able to beat Orochimaru. Of course, nothing was for certain, but all that's left is to get through it, Naruto thought to himself. He found the best way to occupy his time when he was lost in his thoughts and all his friends were busy was to go out and train. Some private time was exactly what he needed right now. However, someone was at the training grounds to greet him. Uzumaki. Naruto simply stood at the edge of the clearing, eyebrows raised with an expression clearly conveying his confusion. Neji stood a few meters away, arms crossed with a stoic expression on his face. Hey Neji, what are you doing here? Naruto asked uncertainly as he recovered from his shock and stepped forward. Neji glared daggers at the opposing genin. Naruto felt himself tense up. The boy looked like he was ready to attack him at any moment. It doesn't make any sense, Neji muttered, but said it loud enough for Naruto to hear him. You're a loser, a dead last, and yet Hinata-sama praises you for being strong. That is wrong, but... Neji trailed off. As begrudging as it was to admit it, he noticed the change in his cousin. She was getting stronger. The blonde annoyance's confused reply only frustrated him. It didn't make any sense. Both of them were losers and yet, day by day, Hinata had continued to grow stronger. Neji had always thought that it was Hinata's fate, her destiny to be a pathetic weakling to be looked down upon. He could see it in her eyes and in her attitude. He couldn't use the word weakling to describe her anymore, and that was all because the delusional boy in front of him was giving her the idea that she could someday amount herself to something. Hinata wanted to, for whatever reason, to live up to this guy's expectations. Naruto was throwing Neji's lifelong philosophy for a loop and it really frustrated him. It's useless, Neji said, more to himself than Naruto. Hinata-sama will always be a weakling. It is her destiny. Stop saying those things about Hinata, Naruto demanded, glaring at the Hyuga boy. It's not only insulting to Hinata, but to me as well. Oh, because you both share the destiny of being a weakling. Neji smirked. No, it's just that hearing you say that my destiny is already decided makes it sound like everything I'm trying to do, that everything I'm trying to change, is all for nothing. Naruto muttered to himself. All this fate and destiny talk bothered him more than it had in his past life. If fate couldn't be changed, then that mean at the end of everything, Madara would still kill him. He would still fail. Naruto couldn't and wouldn't accept that. I'll make fate my bitch, Naruto proclaimed in his mind, smiling at the thought. Hinata-sama is destined to be defeated by me. It is what has already been decided. Neji went on. Why did you come here today, Neji? Naruto suddenly asked, throwing the boy off. What? Why are you here? If you truly believed Hinata was destined to lose, why the hell are you telling me that? Naruto asked. It's clear we have different views on the matter, and I'm never going to change my opinion on the matter. It's a fact. Hinata is strong. Who are you trying to convince, me or yourself? Neji just glared at the boy. He couldn't find the words to respond back. It was his fault. He was the reason Hinata was changing. Fate isn't set in stone like you think. Naruto continued. He crossed his arms and smirked at the angry Hyuga. What's the matter? Are you mad that we're disrupting your perfect little world? Yes. Neji ignored the voice in his head and pulled his stoic mask back on. He shook his head and walked towards the blonde. He wouldn't get anywhere by talking to this loser. HMPH. No matter what you say, Hinata-sama cannot win. You two will forever remain losers. Neji said as he walked past Naruto. And gave into impulse. Naruto's eyes widened when he felt Neji's palm slammed into his backside and bring him to the ground. The Juken strike knocked the wind out of him and Naruto gasped as he felt his tenketsu shut down. The Jinchuriki fell to his knees due to the suddenness of the attack. As I said, you two are weaklings, Neji affirmed, satisfied with his attack. He turned and headed out of the training grounds. Neji's eyes widened when his sharp senses picked up on something coming at him from behind. He turned on his heel just as Naruto's foot was about to connect with his backside. Neji quickly raised his hand and warded off the attack. He blocked Naruto's following punch and pushed the boy back, putting some distance between the two of them. Not cool, Neji, not cool. Naruto grinned as he took up a fighting stance. Save it for the finals, will ya? You attacked back, Neji retorted. The veins around his eyes pulsed as he Byakugan flared. Hey, well, come on then. We've still got a few days before the finals start, Naruto grinned, raising his finger and beckoning Neji towards him with a taunting gesture. Let's have a little warm-up match. HMPH, foolishness, Neji said, though he grinned and charged forward. Gah, fast, Naruto thought as he raised his arm too late and Neji connected his palm with his stomach, sending him back a few feet and shutting off another tenketsu point. Naruto quickly recovered and twisted his body for a sweeping kick which Neji easily warded on. Using his own spinning attack, Neji twisted his body around Naruto and struck 2 tenketsu points on Naruto's shoulder. The boy grunted and brought his elbow back, though Neji ducked and hit 2 more tenketsu points on his sides. Is this all you are, Uzumaki? Neji's taunting voice asked. TCH, you haven't seen anything yet, Naruto said, squatting into a stance Jiraiya taught him and shot his foot out towards Neji's legs. As Neji jumped to dodge, Naruto rolled away to get away from the close combat specialist. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 6 shadow clones poofed into existence and rushed Neji. The Hyuga smirked as he danced around the clones' attacks, dispelling them with quick thrusts to the head or stomach when they passed by him. Neji continued to do this until he had dispelled more than 20 clones. He knew Naruto had a high chakra capacity, but seeing him make so many clones and not even be winded was something even he found quite impressive. Neji fell into a pattern as he dispelled clone after clone. His eyes widened when a shadow fell over him. He cursed his carelessness for not noticing the dozens of clones that were descending upon him. At this point, there was only one way to guard against them. Neji pivoted on his heel and started spinning, pushing his chakra out as he did so. Kaden. All the clones were immediately reflected and dispelled once they hit the dome of chakra. Neji stopped spinning after a few seconds and glared at his foe, who had drawn a few shuriken and kunai and was just in the motion of throwing them. Neji scoffed and jumped to the side as he dodged the projectiles, thrusting out at the 2 clones that were coming at him from the side. His eyes widened when one didn't dispel when he hit it. Gotcha, Naruto proclaimed as he shot his fist forward. HMPH, Neji grunted as he bent down a bit, wrapped his hand around Naruto's outstretched wrist and flung him over his head. Naruto quickly spun in the air and landed on his feet. He gave Neji an annoyed look who smirked in return. You cannot defeat me, Uzumaki. You cannot even hit me. Neji smirked arrogantly at the blonde. Is that my fate too? Naruto asked. It is. To Neji's surprise, Naruto smiled. Then I guess I'll just have to smash my fate to pieces just to prove you wrong. Neji settled back into his gentle fist stance as Naruto rushed towards him again, creating 3 clones as he ran. One clone jumped in the air while the other one rushed at him, leaving the original and the remaining clones behind. The clone in the air came down on him with an axe kick while the other clone aimed a punch at his face. Neji sighed and grabbed the punching clone's wrist and tossed him upwards. Just as he was about to dispel the clone with a quick thrust, the clone dispelled itself manually. The quick change-up surprised Neji, who still had the kicked clone to worry about, but it wasn't anything he couldn't dodge. Wait. Neji's eyes widened when he looked down and saw 2 hands grabbing onto his legs, holding him in place. Underground. The Hyuga cursed as the clone came down on him. Neji raised his arms in a crossing gesture, catching the clone's foot as he blocked it, throwing the clone to the ground and dispelling it while twisting out of the hidden clone's grasp. He staggered a bit as he recovered from the surprise attack, but his eyes widened again when the earth beneath him rumbled. Another clone shot out from the ground with its fist coming first. Neji strained as his body bent backwards, intent on avoiding the blow as he attempted to recover. Neji could feel the wind pressure from the clone's fist when he barely missed his chin. Neji's eyes widened when the clone suddenly dispelled as it was rising out of the ground. Neji coughed as he felt the oxygen get punched out of his lungs when Naruto, the real one, sank his fist into his stomach. The blonde smirked triumphantly at the Hyuga who gasped as Naruto's blow successfully connected. The boy smirked. Got you. Naruto grinned. Neji felt his anger boil. You were within the range of my divination, Uzumaki. Naruto's eyes widened when he heard the familiar phrase. It was too late to get away. Hake Rokujin Sho. Naruto felt every bone and muscle in his body strain and tense as he took on the full force of Neji's 64-palm strike. Each and every one of his tenketsu shut down as Neji's strikes doubled, pushing him back a bit after each set of strikes. 64 palms. Neji shouted as he finished off the technique, adding one final thrust to Naruto's stomach and blowing the boy backwards. He smirked as Naruto hit the ground with a dull thud. HMPH. It was already decided for you to lose, Uzumaki. Neji proclaimed as he relaxed his stance. It was your fate from before this fight started. My fate was also for me not to hit you. Naruto's teasing voice called out, making Neji frown. What about that? You still lost. I still hit you. The end result is all that matters. The end result is that I hit you. Neji's frustration continued to build. Uzumaki, you. Besides, who said anything about me losing? To Neji's shock and astonishment, Naruto slowly got to his feet. It was impossible. No one should be able to stand after getting hit with that attack. Neji's eyes widened again when Naruto brought his hands together. Was he trying to use ninjutsu? No. With so many of his tenketsu sealed, it was impossible to perform ninjutsu, let alone fight. The technique was specifically designed to shut down certain chakra nodes in the body that would completely rob someone of their ability to fight. Why was he trying to? And just like that, thanks to his Byakugan, Neji was able to watch as in shocked awe as Naruto forced every one of his close tenketsu open again. Chakra almost seemed to fill up the boy's entire system, closing the points Neji had sealed previously. Neji could only stare. Impossible. How did he? Uzumaki Naruto, how do you have so much chakra? Who was this boy in front of him? Damn, even after all this time getting hit with that attack still hurts like a bitch. Forcing my tenketsu back open with my own chakra is too. Naruto chuckled, wincing at the slight sting in his muscles. He had used the Kyuubi's chakra that was his now instead of calling on the demon, so it was all good. It really showed him how much his chakra control had improved thanks to Yamato's training. You, Neji gasped. Come on, Neji, this fight isn't over yet. Naruto smirked. Let's get your Kaden going again. Otherwise you might not be able to block this attack. Naruto's chakra spiked again as a small orb of chakra slowly began to form in his hand. The ball of chakra spun and grew, and with his Byakugan he could clearly see the power the ball contained. Let's see how my ultimate attack does against your ultimate defense. Naruto smirked as he rushed forward. Neji shook himself out of his shocked state and readied himself to block the attack. His muscles and body were tense, and refused to calm down as Naruto rushed him. Could he dodge it? Maybe, but if he was hit by that attack then? No, he couldn't risk it. He was too close. Neji started spinning and expelling his chakra just as Naruto came forward. Kaden. Rasengan. Both chakra-based techniques, one entirely made for offense and the other made for defense, met with a violent clash. Blue chakra sparked as Naruto's attack hit Neji's barrier. Both of them strained as Naruto and Neji pushed their chakra against one another. Naruto's attack wouldn't break through the barrier, but Neji's defense couldn't immediately repel him. Of course, one of them was straining. This can't be, Neji thought as his chakra began to cave inward. Kaden is impenetrable, nothing has ever pierced its absolute defense. But his attack, Both the Rasengan and the Kaden used rotation and build-up and release of chakra. In a way, that made them similar in execution, only they were used for different purposes. Both rotations met each other and struggled to either overcome or push the other back. The techniques grinded against each other, but Neji's was waning. Naruto had more chakra, and like Neji, it seemed like he could control the rotation and power of his attack. No, I won't be defeated by this loser. I must keep the barrier up. Neji thought furiously as he pushed more chakra out. Naruto pushed back. He could feel himself starting to stumble. His rotation was slowly down and Naruto was starting to break through. Sweat ran down Neji's brow as he struggled to keep the Kaden going. His chakra was being sapped up as he continued the attack. Was this it? Would the ultimate defense be? All of a sudden, the force that had been pushing against his barrier disappeared. Neji's eyes widened as the grinding pressure disappeared, and with the last of his strength, Neji pushed his chakra out and expanded the barrier. He felt something hit the wall of chakra and blast off of it. Neji slowed to a stop as he heard a dull thud echo across the training grounds. The training grounds were silent for a moment. Neji staggered but quickly recovered himself as he stood up. His muscles were burning, but it wasn't anything a day of rest wouldn't fix. He'd still be in top condition for the finals but... Neji's fists clenched in frustration. Why did you cancel your attack? There was silence. Uzumaki, Neji demanded. A tired laugh came as a reply. Don't sound so angry, Naruto chuckled. You won, didn't you? Neji growled under his breath. He did win, but, he felt no satisfaction in the victory. It was like the boy had just given up near the end. Handed him the win. How could he take pride in a victory like that? Why did you stop your attack? Neji asked again. Naruto was silent for a moment before answering. Because, I'm not the one who's supposed to beat you this time. Naruto answered, confusing Neji with his words. This time, Neji muttered to himself. Hinata's your opponent, not me. Naruto smiled as he stared up at the sky. The sun was already setting. It wouldn't be fair if I defeated you before she did. That's your reason. Hey, don't get mad about it. I'm not even sure if I would have broken through your Kaden even if I hadn't stopped my attack. Naruto admitted, I was really starting to strain near the end there. Naruto was satisfied with this. He may not have been able to beat Neji, and even though the boy didn't acknowledge, he had changed his fate. It was a small thing, but those tiny differences were what gave Naruto hope for a better future. It was those same small changes that led him to where he was right now. Even after, why do you still have so much faith in my cousin? Neji demanded angrily. Each of them held each other in such high regard. Why? I've gotta live up to her expectations, a girl like her deserves support. Naruto smiled. It's not strange for me to put my bets on someone like her. Maybe you should do the same. Preposterous. Neji growled as he deactivated his Byakugan. He stepped past Naruto's body and exited the training ground. She will lose tomorrow. A taunting voice called back at him. We'll see. Neji growled as his pace quickened. He won. That was the mantra he kept repeating in his mind. Yet it still felt like, in some way, he had lost. Orange is my favorite color. Naruto thought this as he stared up at the colored sky. Shades of red, yellow, and orange danced and blended in the sky and remaining clouds above, with spots of blue and purple to signal the coming night. Naruto continued to lie there with his back on the ground. The whole front of his body felt sore. That's what you get for colliding face first into one of the Hyuga's ultimate techniques. In his exhausted state, the Kyuubi's growling voice didn't surprise Naruto as much as it should have. What do you want? Naruto groaned mentally. Nothing. I'm just fixing up what you and that Hyuga kid messed up. Me? You can't just force open Tenketsu like that. It hurt like hell when you did that, right? Your control might have been screwy if I left it as is. You'll be sore tomorrow, but you'll be ready for the finals. That's a relief. Naruto sighed. And you're being surprisingly helpful all of a sudden. Foolish human. The demon growled in his mind. We have an agreement, don't we? I need to keep you in top condition if you have any hope of fighting against that snake wannabe and win. Not only that, but if you gain the status of Chunin it will work out well for me. How does me being a Chunin work out for you? Naruto asked. My host is a reflection of my great self. Chunin is just another step closer to getting something more befitting for my status. It's all about you, huh? Obviously. The fox chuckled. And what rank would befit your status? Something far more prestigious than Hokage, fleshling. You'll never even come close to amounting to my greatness, so I'll have to settle for something closer to it. Whatever, Naruto groaned. Just keep doing whatever it is you're doing and leave me alone. Make sure you're available on finals day too. Oh, need me for something else? The Kyuubi purred. Orochimaru is strong. I need you for this one, furball. Naruto thought sternly, though he tried his best to sound as polite and pleading as possible. Don't try anything funny, just help me win, okay? Cackling laughter was Naruto's only response. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki continued to lie there for a few more minutes. He closed his eyes and let the breeze wash over him. It helped relax his sore muscles. Naruto felt something brush the top of his nose. He scrunched his nose up when the thing started to tickle him. He heard an amused giggle when he sneezed. Naruto opened his eyes and narrowed them at the expressionless mask that was leaning over him. Hey, Naruto greeted from his position. Hello, Haku replied cheerfully as she removed her Anbu mask. Naruto didn't even know why she wore the thing. She wasn't even an Anbu to begin with. Wanna help me up? Naruto asked. I don't know, Haku said, tapping her chin thoughtfully. You're in a pretty submissive state. I'm starting to think about all the things I could get away with right now. Naruto caught her wrist when she reached down towards him. You're scary, Naruto stated with a deadpan expression. I suppose that's your opinion then. Haku commented lightly as she gripped his wrist and helped the boy up. Naruto gave the girl a light glare as he brushed off the grass from his pants. She smiled innocently back at him. It was so hard to tell what she was thinking sometimes. You've been gone for a while, Naruto commented. I've been busy, Haku returned. She gave the boy a coy smile. Do you really miss me that much, Naruto-kun? Come on, I'm tired, Naruto groaned, not in the mood for her jokes. Well, after something like that I'm sure you would be, Haku said as she kept pace with him. You were watching. It was entertaining, and very moving, Haku smiled. I only wish Hinata-chan could have been there to see it. I must admit, I'm a little jealous. Jealous of what? I'm just saying what I feel, Naruto said, arching an eyebrow at her. He crossed his arms. She doesn't deserve all the crap she gets from Neji or the other Hyugas, and Hinata's plenty strong. I'm just trying to make those idiots see that. Yes, that's true, Haku agreed as she walked beside him. I suppose that blunt honesty is one of the reasons she likes you so much. Huh. Anko, Hayate, and myself have made the necessary preparations, Haku reported to him. We've singled out many of Orochimaru's agents and we've had other Anbu keep an eye on them. Ibiki wasn't able to get anything useful out of the ones who were clumsy enough to blow their cover though. We haven't been able to find Kabuto or the Sound 4 though. That's fine. As long as they're somewhat aware of Orochimaru's men lurking around the village we can be somewhat prepared for the invasion. Naruto said, we'll get them during the finals. There's something else I think you'll be happy to know. Haku smiled. We managed to get Yamato and Hayate permission to be the Hokage's bodyguards during the finals. They'll be standing with him at the Hokage's box during the Chunin exams finals. Really? That's great, Naruto whooped. Those two actually knew about the invasion and what was going on. That would make them perfect bodyguards for the old man. It gets better, Haku grinned. Jiraiya managed to forge a report before he left and gave it to me. Using that as Jiraiya's orders, I told Yamato and Hayate about Orochimaru's assassination of the Kazekage and his stealing his identity. They've agreed to keep it a secret until Jiraiya says otherwise, so they know exactly who will be sitting next to the Hokage during the finals. Those two couldn't be more prepared. Haku blinked when she was suddenly pressed up against something. Her eyes widened when she realized Naruto was hugging the living daylights out of her as he jumped around enthusiastically. Yes, ha ha ha, Naruto cheered as he continued to embrace the girl. Thank you, Haku, thank you. With those two aware of Orochimaru's presence beforehand, they'll be able to protect the old man. He won't die this time. Thank you. The biggest issue for him was that Yamato, but more often than him it was Hayate, would often question the orders Naruto and Kakashi gave them. Naruto didn't want to give either men his memories, so it was hard getting them to do what they want without revealing that they knew more than they were letting on. That was why Naruto couldn't specifically tell the two outright that Orochimaru had killed the Kazekage, was wearing his face, and was going to sit next to and attack the Hokage during the finals. The best he could do was tell them to be on guard. Now that they knew the magnitude of the position they had placed themselves in, that increased the old man's chances of survival this time around. That fake report that Jiraiya had forged for Haku was the proof he could use to make them act without questions. It was evidence Jiraiya had found for this undercover, secret mission they were all on and why they couldn't tell the Hokage. They had an alibi they could use without showing they knew about the future. Haku, I could kiss you right now. Naruto laughed as he twirled the girl about. This is awesome. Haku, unknown to the excited blonde spinning her around, was stiff in his arms and wore a blush that could easily compete with one of Hinata's. Spending her whole life with Zabuza on the run hadn't given her much experience with such, affectionate forms of gratitude. Teasing was one thing, and she was fine when she initiated it, but Haku took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She smiled and wrapped her arms around Naruto. She murmured a small, "You're welcome," as she returned his hug. Naruto-sama, Haku-chan. Naruto stopped jumping around and paused when he heard a familiar soft voice. Naruto turned his head towards the voice as Haku did the same. Both of their eyes fixed upon a familiar white head. Yuzura. Naruto was about to ask the girl why she was all the way out here until he noticed something red soaking the shoulder part of her kimono. His eyes widened. Yuzura, Naruto cried out, releasing the girl and rushing over to his servant. Your shoulder is bleeding, what happened? The girl winced as her master shot various questions at her and tore her hand away from the wound she had been attempting to cover up. She turned away when Haku gave a stern look. Yuzura sighed miserably at her own carelessness. She'd be caught. XXXXX. Attacked? Who attacked you? Naruto demanded. He had immediately started questioning the fox girl the minute they had taken her back to his apartment. Haku was busy stitching up Yuzura's wound while Naruto fired question after question at her. The cut was fairly shallow and would heal in a couple days, but she had been bleeding enough to make Naruto panic. Was Orochimaru already attacking? Did his earlier defeat make him mad enough to start his invasion early? Naruto's train of thought crashed when something smacked him across the head. Gawk. Haku, what was that for? Naruto asked, glaring at the girl who withdrew her hand. Because this is your fault. Haku scolded harshly, much to the boy's shock. How did you not notice this? Naruto was at a loss for words. Haku-chan, please don't be angry at Naruto-sama. Yuzura said gently. She shrank back when Haku glared at her. And don't think I'm forgetting about you. This is your fault too. Haku chided as she flicked the girl's forehead, who gave a helpless whimper in return. I thought you said you were going to tell him. Naruto was, again, at a loss for words. Was Yuzura supposed to tell him something? I couldn't trouble Naruto-sama. He had to devote his time to preparing for the finals. Protecting him from those who would do him harm is just my duty as his vassal. Yuzura protested. Hold on a minute. Naruto stopped her, raising his hand in a gesture. Protect me. From what? Yuzura bit her lip and turned away. Haku tapped the girl's shoulder and made a firm gesture to start talking. The Kitsune girl sighed. Her ears drooped as she decided to come clean. Well, like I said, I was attacked in the forest, but it wasn't me they were trying to find. Yuzura told Naruto hesitantly. Sound ninja have been coming every so often to scout and keep an eye on you, Naruto-sama. A few times these men attempted to take your life, so I would go and take care of them before they could harm you. You said that they have been. Exactly how long have you been having run-ins with Orochimaru's men? Naruto asked slowly. Maybe 2 weeks, Yuzura admitted. She shook her hand frantically. But it's not like it's every day. You needn't concern yourself with it, really. Naruto-sama has many more things to worry about. Taking care of a few ninja is nothing for Yuzura. Naruto cut her off, the intensity in his voice silencing the babbling girl immediately. Why didn't you tell me? Instead of getting an answer from her, Haku hit him over the head again. Ouch, damn it, Haku. Why couldn't you have figured it out for yourself? Haku asked. A few times when I came back to rest I noticed how tired and sometimes how dirty Yuzura-chan was. I even helped her dispatch a few of Orochimaru's men once. She promised to tell you when she told me you were unaware of the attacks too. Naruto thought back to the past couple weeks. Now that he thought of it, Yujira always seemed a little out of it when she came back from her errands. Her appearance and demeanor suddenly seemed a lot more like blatantly obvious clues as to what was going on now that he thought of it. He should have noticed something was off. Did Gaara know too? Naruto asked. He suspected something, but I asked him to leave it alone. I didn't want to trouble him. Yujira said sheepishly. Naruto sighed. He'd bitch at the Ikibi container for not telling him anything later. Really, he could only blame his own obliviousness for this. Kami, did he feel like a moron? I'm really sorry, Yujira. Naruto said, bowing towards the girl in apology. I should have noticed something was wrong. No, it's fine. I didn't want to trouble Naruto-sama when he has so much to prepare for. Yujira said, waving him off. I don't care if I'm busy or whatever, if something like this happens, I want you to tell me. Naruto told her sternly, I don't like it when people close to me are getting hurt for my sake without my knowing about it. But you. Look, I know your intentions were good and I appreciate that, but the reason I'm doing all this training and preparing is so I can protect everyone I care about. Hinata, the old man, Kakashi, Haku, and you too. Naruto went on, if you're getting hurt because of me, and especially when you're trying to hide it, that makes me feel like I've failed. Yujira was silent. If someone I know is in trouble, I want to help them. That goes for you too, Yujira. Naruto said, placing a hand on the girl's shoulder. So I want you to promise me that you'll be honest with this kind thing, okay? Don't be afraid to ask for help. I care about you and I don't want to see you get hurt. Yujira played with the hem of her kimono, trying to fight down her blush. She gave a slow nod as she bashfully looked up at her master. Oh okay, Naruto-sama. I promise not to do something like this again. Yujira promised. She bowed her head towards him. I'm sorry for not telling you. And I'm sorry for not noticing. Naruto grinned, apologizing in turn. Well, I forgive you too as well. Haku smiled, ruffling the duo's hair. Naruto frowned at her while Yujira giggled. I wasn't asking for your forgiveness, Haku. Naruto pouted. I forgive you for being so ignorant and useless. Haku replied harshly, making the boy wince. We do so much for you, and ask nothing in return. What kind of man are you if you can't protect us after all that? Goo. Naruto's shoulders slumped as her words were like daggers to his pride. Why you don't have to put it like that? If I'm not honest, how can I expect you to learn from your mistakes? Haku smiled as Yujira giggled from beside her. She finished patching up her friend's shoulder and pulled Naruto into the kitchen. Now, how about you make us some dinner for once? Ah, Haku-chan, I can still. Yujira tried to speak up but Haku held her hand up. No, Naruto-kun wants to cook for us as a reward for all we've done for him, right? Haku said, giving the blonde a teasing smile. Yeah, just don't expect much. I'm not the great cook Yujira is. Naruto sighed as he pulled out a few pots and pans. He should probably make a little extra for when Gaara got back. The two girls laughed and sat themselves down at the table, waiting for Naruto to cook their meal. Yujira looked a little guilty and clearly wouldn't have minded cooking, but Haku wouldn't let her. The older girl put on a winning smile as she waited for Naruto to cook their meal. Despite himself, Naruto smiled too. He really was grateful for all those two were doing for him in this new life. XXXXX. So that's that then. Dosu nodded as Kabuto sighed melodramatically. The sound genin had just got done reporting about what had happened to the group who were supposed to take care of the little blonde annoyance that had defeated Orochimaru. Not that anyone but himself knew that. If their men heard that the great Orochimaru was defeated by a child, morale would drop. And Orochimaru would probably kill him for letting that information. There was that too. Well, I suppose there's nothing we can do about that. I don't want to send any more men to their deaths just for one child. Kabuto shrugged. Clearly this sword girl is giving us more trouble than it's worth. A few days wait until the finals won't be so bad. Aren't you looking forward to that, Dosu? Yeah, the boy nodded after a short pause. Kabuto noticed this odd behavior, but didn't say anything about it. Truth was, Dosu really wanted to fight Sasuke and contemplated offing Naruto before the tournament so he could fight who he wanted to immediately. But something held him back. He found that he didn't, want to actually hurt Naruto. If he was going to fight him, he wanted to do it out in the open, no dirty tricks, during the finals. It was very uncharacteristic for him, especially since Dosu had no problem cheating when the situation called for it. But spending those few days with the blonde, even smiling and laughing with his teammates who he barely got along with before. He wanted to make it a good fight. He didn't want to betray Naruto's friendship. But I'm still gonna have to kill him sooner or later, Dosu thought miserably. It was for Orochimaru-sama, after all. The invasion could not fail. Is there a reason you're still here? Kabuto asked when Dosu didn't leave. I was just wondering where Zaku and Kin are. Dosu asked uncertainly. You called them in last week and I haven't seen them since. Ah, well, Orochimaru-sama has a special assignment for those two. Kabuto smiled, patting the ninja mummy on the shoulder. Just defeat Naruto in the finals and wait patiently for things to get started, okay? Yes, Dosu nodded and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Once he was sure he was alone, Kabuto pulled out a few of his info cards. He fanned them out and glanced at the names. Naruto, Haku, Yujiro, Kakashi, Anko, Hayate, Yamato, Jiraiya. Their actions had clearly had an influence on their invasion plans. At first, this Naruto person was the only one who warranted concern. Kabuto was right to trust his intuition and keep tabs on the boy, otherwise his master would have lost his life that day in the forest. After taking the time to observe him throughout the month, it was clear that this boy had a fair idea of what was to come, as did his allies. Further research also surprised him. Naruto was a Jinchuriki, he knew that, but thanks to Yamato he was learning how to control the Kyuubi's power. Haku seemed to be adept at spying since it was she who was able to save Hayate that night when he had met with Baki. Oh yes, he had been aware of it all, and had enjoyed the show immensely. The Toad Sage and disappeared off to who knows where, but Kabuto had a pretty good idea about it. Hayate and Anko had exposed quite a number of his lackeys, and while those were acceptable losses, they should have been a little bit more careful. Ah, you may think you're being secretive about this. But you shouldn't have been so desperate in trying to find us. It really makes me wonder just how much you know, Kabuto chuckled to himself. He had kept all this information to himself, of course. Why spoil the surprise? It was a rare opportunity. How many times had someone had the advantage over Orochimaru and not the other way around? The invasion's outcome had been predictable at first, and that was boring. Now with so many little variables changing things up, Kabuto felt an excitement he hadn't felt in a long time. The possibilities were endless. Who would emerge the victor? And he still had to solve the most pressing mystery. How did you know all of this was to come, Naruto-kun? There were clues in the boy's actions and words, but Kabuto had yet to come up with a hypothesis. The young man readjusted his glasses and let out a low, sadistic chuckle. Well, that's the fun thing about experiments, isn't it? The end result is always a mystery. This was an experiment he couldn't wait to conduct. Who would emerge the victor? Orochimaru, or Konoha? Let's find out together, Orochimaru-sama. Kabuto's laughter echoed through the darkness as he slipped into the shadows. XXXXX. Day 30. Tomorrow. That was the word that kept on repeating in Naruto's head. He lied awake in his bed, staring up at the ceiling as he thought about everything had done up until this point. It was late at night and he was anxiously waiting for tomorrow to come around. The entire month had been nice. When he thought about it, he really did have a good time. Sure, he had spent a good majority of his time training and thinking about the invasion that would take place tomorrow, but it was fun. All the little things that had happened were a great breather. A calm before the coming storm. Kakashi told him about some adventures he went on with his dad and about his mom. He had trained with Sasuke and Sakura, and even got together to hang out with them during his breaks. He finally had a date with Hinata and had helped bring her out of her shell. He couldn't wait to see her show off during the finals. He visited Zaku and Kin and made friends with them, and Dosu too. Even though he'd be fighting the mummy-looking ninja in the finals, he didn't feel any animosity towards the Sound Team anymore. Kiba and Shino had dragged him to one of Team 8's training sessions once and had a great time. He even had lunch with Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino when he and his team ran into them after training. Choji declared that he would win the exams next time while Ino sort of made up with Sakura. She had actually congratulated the girl for winning and was proud of her for growing strong, promising not to lose to her next time. Yamato had come to trust him and support him as a teacher. Naruto wondered when he would see Sai again when he thought about the old Team Yamato in his past life. Jiraiya was treating him like a godson and was out trying to find his godmother and her apprentice to bring them back to Konoha. He couldn't wait to see Ba-chan and Shizune again. Haku and Anko, along with some help from Hayate, had helped him prepare for the finals and Haku's attitude helped encourage him. Yuzora's secret deed for him was unwanted, but he was still grateful. He just had to make sure that something like that wouldn't happen again without his knowledge. Gaara was also trying to gain control of the Ikibi's chakra, though Naruto wasn't sure how far he had come along with that. Would everything be okay? Would Jiraiya be back in time for the finals? Had Tsunade even agreed to come with him? Would the old man get killed again? Would he be able to kill Orochimaru and Kabuto? Would any of his friends die? Would he be able to protect them? Will I win? Naruto sat in the darkness of his room, thinking. Haku and Gaara must have already been sound asleep in their rooms, and he could tell from Yuzora's quiet breathing next to his bed on her futon that she was asleep as well. Naruto extended his hand into the air, making a tight fist. A smile worked its way onto his face. I'll win. With that declaration, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. XXXXX. The stadium was filled to the brim with people of all ages. Children, adults, civilians, shinobi, commoners, councilmen, clan members, everyone had turned up to watch the Chunin exam finals take place. The crowd was bustling with activity discussing the competition and placing their bets. Down in the area, 10 out of the 11 contestants were present. Each of them had trained for this very moment, and each one of them were ready to give it their best. And Sasuke isn't here, Naruto thought with a smirk as he noticed his friend's absence. Obviously Kakashi was the one to blame. Hey, stop looking around. Face the customers. Naruto turned towards the proctor who had made the announcement. Genma smirked as he looked over the 10 genin. Any one of them could become a Chunin. It would be fun to see who came out on top. In this tournament, you guys are the stars. Genma went on as he and the genin faced the stadium of spectators. Try to give them a good show. Everyone had a different reaction to his words, but they were ready. Let's get this thing started, shall we? Naruto grinned. Let the games begin. Right this way, Hokage-sama. Ah, thank you Yamato-san. Hiruzen smiled as he took his seat. The Hokage's spectator box was held high above the other seats in the stadium, giving him a perfect view of the arena and the Chunin hopefuls. Hayate and Yamato stood at his sides, alert and attentive like good bodyguards should be, but they too were anticipating the fights to come. Sarutobi could hear the restless chatter and banter coming from below. The audience was clearly eager for the fights to get started. While the Hokage was also eager for the fights, he had to wait for his other guests to arrive before things could begin. Hello, Hokage Dono. Sarutobi turned towards the guest who had just arrived, giving him a welcoming smile. He didn't see Yamato or Hayate stiffen when they caught sight of the man. Kazekage Dono, I'm happy to have you join us for the Chunin exams. Hiruzen nodded towards the man. I hope that the journey here wasn't any trouble for you. Not at all, it's a good thing that the exams are being held here in Konoha. I would have been worried about you making the trip otherwise. The Kazekage remarked good-naturedly from behind the piece of cloth that hid his face from view. Come now, I'm not that old. The Hokage chuckled. You're gaining years fast, perhaps it's time you started thinking of naming a fifth. The Kazekage suggested as he sat in the seat next to the Hokage. His silent bodyguards took their places by the man's side. I still plan to do this for a couple more years. However, if someone capable enough shows up I may consider stepping down. Hiruzen replied lightly. It seems like a good year for us. The Kazekage commented as he looked down at the arena. Only those from Konoha and Suna have made it to the final round, bar that one child from Sound. But whether or not any of them will become Chunin remains to be seen. Hiruzen smiled. He slowly got up from his seat and stepped forward. I believe now would be a good time to begin the finals, wouldn't you agree? By all means. As the Hokage stepped forward to address those in the audience, Hayate gave Yamato a nervous glance. The Mokuden user reminded the man of their duty with a solid look, forcing Hayate to look away and pull a stoic mask onto his face. The man coughed once and glanced at Yamato again. This time, unnoticed by everyone but Hayate, Yamato gave a small nod to reassure him. Because of their involvement with Jiraiya's undercover mission, the two of them knew exactly who was sitting beside their leader. They knew that it was Orochimaru who was disguising himself as the Kazekage to catch the Hokage off guard. But the two of them would be ready. They had talked with Kakashi and Anko yesterday night and the two had reported that there would be a signal to let them know when to act. They hadn't actually said what the signal was exactly, only that they would know it when they saw it. Yamato and Hayate were both nervous, but they kept their composure. One of Konoha's greatest enemies was sitting right next to them, and if they had any hope of finishing off the threat that was Orochimaru the Snake Sannin for good, they'd have to play their part perfectly. XXXXX. Somewhere in the audience, the rookies who hadn't made it into the finals sat together as they waited for the Chunin exams to start. Ino and Choji sat to Kiba's right, overlooking the events with anxious looks. Their Jonin teachers sat in the row behind them, patiently waiting for the matches to begin. "It feels kinda lonely up here," Ino said sullenly. "Are we really the only three that didn't pass?" "That girl with buns in her hair and that freak in the jumpsuit didn't pass either," Kiba pointed out. "Yeah, but they went up against those scary siblings from Suna." Ino replied, "We're the only ones from our graduating class who didn't go to the finals. I didn't think so many of us would be able to pass." "Aren't you happy for them though?" Choji asked through a mouthful of chips. "I am, but it kinda makes you feel inadequate, you know," Ino said contemplatively. "I mean, I never thought Sakura would have gotten so strong. I had always thought that I'd be better than her, but she beat me without breaking a sweat. Lazy Shikamaru managed to be the only one on our team to pass, and even dead last Naruto and Shai Hinata managed to make it to the finals." "Hey, enough of that," Kiba snapped. "We're here to cheer our friends on. Every one of them deserves to be here, so that means we should support them." "Hinata got a freebie in though," Choji pointed out. "That doesn't matter. Take it from me dude, she deserves to be here just as much as anyone else," Kiba proclaimed proudly. "She's been working her butt off for the past month so she could match her cousin. She'll kick his ass." "This isn't the last Chunin exam we'll have," Asuma said comfortingly from behind them. "You may have fallen short this time, but you'll get to show everyone what you're made of in the next exam. You and Choji both, you two certainly have come a long way training with me and Shikamaru. You especially, Ino." "Yeah, you're right," Ino smiled, shrugging her shoulders carelessly. "There's always next year." It wasn't like her to be so morose. She'd kick ass in the next Chunin exams. "That's right, we'll totally make the finals next year," Kiba grinned, pumping his fist in assertion. "You know, you're probably the one who deserves to fail most," Ino suddenly put in, "losing just because you saw a little bit of skin. What kind of Chunin is defeated just by looking at a bunch of naked women?" As amusing as the little spat that broke out in front of them was, the Jonin senseis of Team 10 and Team 8 chose to ignore it to talk about other things of interest. I'll bet Kakashi is pretty happy," Kurenai said as she leaned back in her seat. "All of his students managed to move on to the finals. That's really something." "So did the team from Suna," Asuma pointed out, though he gave a casual shrug as he continued. "But I'll admit, Kakashi's done better than I would have expected. He's put a lot of work into his team and it shows. I honestly thought that Sasuke would be the only real threat on his team. After seeing Naruto, who was once considered a dead last, and Sakura, who I thought would lose out to Ino." "That's what you get for underestimating an opponent, Asuma," Kurenai smiled, well aware of Team 7's strength and coordination from the joint training sessions with her team. "Ninjas should always be on their toes. You do the same thing like that in the field and it'll get you killed." "Too true," Asuma agreed with a small smile. "I suppose Shikamaru wasn't the only lazy person on Team 10. Looks like I'm gonna have to step up my game if I don't want to lose to you and the other Jonin instructors. Maybe I should ask Guy for some training tips after this is over." "Where is he anyway? I thought he'd be here to cheer on Neji." He and his other students said something about bringing Lee to the hospital for a checkup. The boy returned to that incredible training regime too soon and put strain on his healing leg. He said they'd be here before the finals were over, Asuma replied as he took a drag from his cigarette. "I see. Hopefully he won't miss the exams," Kurenai said. "It'll be interesting to see who wins the exams this time. This year seems pretty promising to me. Shikamaru might pull through if he shows a bit of effort. I have confidence in Hinata and Shino, but truth be told I'm a little worried about Shikamaru," Kurenai said. "He can't expect to win if all he has are his family techniques. Against long-range fighters that would be." "Take your own words to heart too, Kurenai," Asuma smirked. "Underestimate a ninja in battle, even someone as lazy as Shikamaru, and you might not live to regret it." The two Jonin smiled competitively at one another before turning back towards the arena. It would be an interesting tournament to say the least. XXXXX. Wow. Yujiro marveled at the sheer amount of people present in the stadium. She could feel the excitement and high tension in the air as the people around her placed their bets. Yujiro had originally planned to hide out somewhere until the invasion started, but Haku insisted that as long as she wore her bandana to cover her foxy bits there shouldn't be any reason for her not to come to the Chunin exams with her and Anko. Haku sat on her right, conversing with Anko, who had placed all her bets on either Naruto or Gaara to win. It was a shame the tournament wasn't going to be finished. I wonder who would have won if not for the invasion, Yuzuru thought to herself curiously. She smiled to herself. Of course, Naruto-sama would be the winner. But she was probably biased. This is quite the spectacle, Haku said as she too overlooked the masses. It was her first time attending a big event like the Chunin exams, so she was in a similar state of awe. She leaned over and whispered in the girl's ear. It's just a shame about the infestation of snakes. Naruto-kun would have probably won otherwise. Yuzuru giggled to herself. Looks like she wasn't the only one with a biased opinion. So, how many have you spotted? Anko suddenly asked the duo, breaking them out of their revelry. About 15, Haku replied monotonously, slipping back into that cold, emotionless persona of hers when she was being professional. About 4 of them are dressed up as Anbu. 12, and still counting, Yuzuru reported, glancing at the disguised sound ninja a few rows down. There's certain to be a lot more of them hiding out somewhere else. The 3 of them let out a collective sigh. Knowing about the invasion and how it would cut the exciting event short was kind of depressing. Not only that, but the anticipation was killing them. The signal for the invasion to start was Gaara and Sasuke's fight, but that was prone to change because of what Kakashi and Naruto had planned. Another thing that was bothersome was the fact that Jiraiya had yet to show up. I wonder if everything will be okay, Yuzuru said softly. Ah, it'll be fine, Anko assured her, reaching over and patting the girl's shoulder. And just because we're prepared and in the know doesn't mean we can't still enjoy the finals, right? She's right, Yuzuru-chan. Haku smiled. Let's just cheer Naruto-kun on, okay? You're right, we're here to support him. We shouldn't be worrying so much. Yuzuru smiled. She raised her fist. Good luck, Naruto-sama. While most of the spectators were either doing their own form of cheering or immersed with themselves, Yuzuru did get a few perplexed look from her strange cheer. Haku chuckled and patted the girl's head. Maybe you can try dropping the sama suffix just for today. Yuzuru either ignored her or was too busy cheering to notice. The Chunin exams were about to start. XXXXX. Everyone, thank you for attending the Chunin exam finals here in Konohagakure. Naruto and the other contestants perked up from the arena when they heard the Hokage's voice. It's starting, Naruto thought. We will now start the main tournament matches between the 11 participants who made it through the preliminaries. Please stay and watch until the end. After he was done listening to the Hokage's announcement, Genma turned towards the 10 assembled genin, minus Sasuke who had yet to arrive, and took out a small piece of paper from his pocket. He held it out so all the kids could see it. This is just in case you might have forgotten who you're fighting against. Genma said, and just a reminder to the winner of round 5. You'll have an extra match to fight with 20 minutes to rest before your secondary matchup. Excuse me, Sakura asked from next to Naruto. Where is Sasuke? What happens if he doesn't show up? If he's not here in time for his match then he'll be disqualified and lose by default. Genma replied shortly. Sasuke-kun wouldn't miss these exams. This isn't like him, Sakura said worriedly. Boy, Kakashi-sensei's really been a bad influence on him, hasn't he? Naruto chuckled. Reading Ika Ika, arriving late. Just add a mask and change up his duck butt style haircut and we'll have a mini Kakashi clone. While this earned a chuckle from a few of the contestants, Sakura was not amused. Naruto. I was joking, Naruto insisted, backing away when his teammate raised her fist. Save it for your match, Pinky. Genma scoffed, earning an angry look from the girl. Anyway, keep in mind that this is the final test. The arena's different, but the rules are the exact same as they were in the preliminaries. You keep fighting until one of you dies or acknowledges defeat. And your match is over if I say it's over, got it? When none of the genin spoke, Genma nodded towards the 2 first contestants. Naruto Uzumaki and Dosu Kinyuta will stay down here for the first round. Genma said. He jabbed his thumb towards a tunnel on the edge of the arena. The rest of you head up towards the contestant spectator box to watch the match. All the genin bar Naruto and Dosu nodded and headed towards the balcony. Sakura smiled and wished her teammate good luck while Hinata quietly murmured her own encouragements to her crush. Shino and Shikamaru nodded towards their friend to show their support before following everyone else to the spectator box. Gaara's slight nod went unnoticed by everyone but Naruto as he shuffled after his siblings. Dosu stood across from the blonde, completely silent. Naruto grinned at the sound ninja. No matter who wins, we'll stay friends, yeah. Naruto smiled. Dosu shuffled uncomfortably when Naruto said that. Before coming here, he had gotten orders to kill the boy if the opportunity arose during the finals. If it were anyone else, Dosu would have had no problem doing it. He would have happily killed anyone for Orochimaru-sama. Yet, this was the one person whom he wasn't sure he could kill and shrug it off later. "We're friends," Dosu said to himself in his mind. Normally he would have tried to deny that so help him cope with the mission, but whenever Naruto had been asked that question of whether or not he was a friend by kin or Zaku, the boy had always said yes. He truly considered the three of them his friends. And even if the mummy-looking boy doubted it himself, Naruto really did consider the three Sound Genin his friends despite what happened in the past. "Yeah," Dosu nodded, taking a battle stance. He smiled under his bandages. "Let's make it a good fight." "You bet," Naruto smirked, also taking a ready position. The crowd suddenly quieted, excited for the first round, though Naruto tried to ignore the few boos and shouts of disapproval some villagers threw at him. "You two ready?" Genma asked. "As I'll ever be," Naruto smirked. "Yes," Dosu nodded. "All right then." Everyone in the stadium watched with bated breath as Genma raised his hand. First round of the Chunin exam finals. He brought his hand down in a chop. "Begin." Dosu wasted no time and rushed towards Naruto with his melody arm pulled back. Naruto jumped back as Dosu took a sweep at his midsection, allowing the punch to swing harmlessly in front of him. Instead of following through with his attack, Dosu relaxed his stance. He turned towards the proctor. "Call it." "Say what?" Genma asked around the senbon he was chewing on. "With my sound wave attack I've destroyed his sense of balance. It would be pointless." Dosu's eyes widened when something hard crashed against the side of his face, sending him flying towards the arena walls. The boy smashed into the wall and bounced off, landing unsteadily as he quickly recovered from the surprise attack. Dosu's eyes widened when he saw Naruto moving and jumping around without any problems. "How are you still?" "Earplugs, if you're wondering." Naruto interrupted him, pointing to his ears. "I saw what you did in the prelims and how that arm of yours works. Those sound waves of yours could have really thrown me off without some ear protection." "How observant of you," Dosu chuckled, cracking the muscles in his neck as he stood up. "But that's not going to be enough to beat me." "What?" "I said, that's not going to be enough to beat me." "What?" "I said that's." "Forget it," Dosu shouted, rushing towards the blonde again. Dosu swung his melody arm forward again, something Naruto easily dodged, but this time Dosu actually followed through with a series of kicks and sweeping gestures that were meant to throw the boy off balance. Dosu smirked under his bandages when he struck Naruto's shin bone, causing the boy to stumble and allowing Dosu to get inside his guard. "I have you now," Dosu smirked, grabbing the boy's shoulder with his melody arm and sending out a shockwave within the blonde's body. "It's over." The boy blinked when Naruto suddenly disappeared in a puff of smoke. Dosu quickly turned and blocked the shuriken that had been thrown at him with his metallic arm. The sound ninja glared at his opponent who was standing on the opposite end of the arena. "Replaced myself with a cage bunshin," Naruto said loudly. With his earplugs, it was hard to judge how far his voice carried. "Plus, I also knew from your match with Choji that you can generate the same sound wave effect within my body if you touch me, even though my ears are plugged up." He was also using knowledge from the past, but nobody needed to know that. "You're correct, I can direct the sound through the water in your body to generate the same effect." Dosu nodded. "I'm sorry, are you talking right now? It's hard to tell when you've got bandages covering your mouth and I'm way over here." "That's fine," Dosu muttered, a little annoyed, as he raised his melody arm again. He started swinging his arm in a pinwheel motion for a few seconds, building up vibrations within his arm and adding chakra for some extra strength. Dosu brought his arm down to the ground. "Furushushkiha," Dosu shouted as he slammed his fist into the earth, sending vibrating shock waves through the ground and uprooting the earth in front of him. Naruto's eyes widened when sharp pillars of earth were being blasted upwards towards him. It was like watching a stray trail of mines go off in front of him. The Konoha Genin quickly dived out of the way just before he was swept up by the shifting earth. The stalagmites crashed into the wall before stopping. At least they didn't start popping up in the crowd, though a few spectators started complaining about their seats being crooked all of a sudden. "I don't remember that move," Naruto muttered as he steadied himself. He could still feel the earth shaking beneath his feet. It felt like those vibrations had rattled the plates in the earth. Well, he couldn't let things drag on any longer. There were other matches to be fought and he had a schedule to keep. Naruto quickly formed a few hand seals as Dosu charged forward again, building up the vibrations in his arms for another attack. Naruto summoned a crowd clones and sent them forward. Dosu's arm shot out in a sweep, taking about 3 clones with him. The mummy's eyes widened when he noticed 4 clones and the original had surrounded him. Before he had a chance to respond with an attack, the original Naruto's foot caught him in the chin, sending him backwards toward a clone's kick. The original jumped up just as the remaining clones all hit Dosu with a rising kick, sending the sound genin up. The Naruto in the air raised his foot and brought it down on top of the boy's face. Uzumaki Renden. Naruto's axe kick sent Dosu to the ground. The boy's face bounced off the ground from the impact before he moved no more. As the clones dispelled and Naruto landed back on the ground, a groaning noise came from Dosu. Damn it! The sound genin groaned before falling silent. Winner of the first round, Uzumaki Naruto. Genma announced as the crowd began to cheer. XXXXX. Naruto-sama, Yujira cheered, clapping her hands together as her master waved to the crowd. Naruto-kun won, Haku exclaimed enthusiastically as she too applauded her friend. Even managed to end it with something a little flashy. Enko smirked, impressed with the boy's use of his clones. He certainly got the crowd going. It's definitely more positive than I would have expected. Indeed, the stadium of spectators was cheering and clapping their hands in response to the first round, which had been a very exciting way to kick things off. As the crowd's cheers started to die down, Yujira turned towards Anko with a curious look on her face. What did you mean by that, Anko-san? The snake mistress didn't have to answer. A random villager in front of her answered the question for her. TCH, who would have thought that'd brat end up winning? Seriously, who let that monster participate in the finals anyway? Another woman villager wondered in disgust. It was still a good fight though. A foreign villager pointed out. Maybe, but it would have been better if the brat had been taken out earlier in the competition. Another Konoha villager said distastefully. Hopefully it'll get eliminated soon. It deserves to lose. Yujira and Haku's eyes narrowed as an ample amount of villagers around them murmured their agreements. The comments the villagers made were making the two of them quite angry. I wonder if anyone would notice if a few villagers suddenly went missing during the invasion. Haku whispered under her breath. Calm down. Anko laughed, patting the girl's head. She gave the 2 younger girls empathetic looks. It's not like their response is unexpected. You know why the kid gets treated like this and how stupid these villagers are. Heck, I had the same problem when I was young for being associated with my bastard sensei. It takes time to change a whole village's mindset. A few good fights won't really change anyone's opinion, especially those who bear scars from the Kyuubi's attack. Even still, Haku sighed. I wish people could see Naruto-kun for who he is instead of seeing him as the Kyuubi itself. They did before, Yujira murmured to herself, thinking of some of Naruto's memories during Pain's attack and how the villagers had revered him as a hero for his defeating him. But only after he had saved everyone in the village from being killed. Seriously, it'd probably take years for the villagers to even start considering the fact that maybe, just maybe, Naruto wasn't the Kyuubi incarnate like they all thought he was. Okay, that's enough moping. Anko said, leaning in close towards the girls so only they could hear. That kid gave us a job to do. We've seen his match, just like you two wanted, so why don't we get started? Haku and Yujira nodded, pushing away their depressing thoughts and eyed their targets that were spread out throughout the stadium. Yujira, you go over there. You can get at least 5 of them when the time comes. I'll take the 7 over there. Anko whispered as the 3 of them got up from their seats and headed towards the back of the stadium. Haku, do you think you can find him? I'll try my best. The Chunin smiled as she put on an Anbu mask. Anko and Yujira both nodded before transforming into villagers to disguise themselves. The duo took their positions within the audience where a few clusters of disguised sound ninja were gathered. They'd be ready to strike them down the moment they made a move. Haku, however, had only one target as opposed to the multiple the others had. The question was, which Anbu had Kabuto disguised himself as? XXXXX. Naruto. Good work. Sarutobi smiled. You've certainly grown stronger, haven't you? That boy is quite adept, isn't he? The Kage commented. It's surprising for one so young to be able to use the Kage Bunshin technique so easily. He's special. The Hokage replied with pride in his voice. He takes down any challenge that's given to him and always surpasses my highest expectations. I have faith that boy will become a great ninja one day. Oh ho, playing favorites, Hokage Dono. Not at all, Sarutobi chuckled. I'm just proud of him, that's all. So many underestimate him when he has so much potential to grow. I only wish to support him by giving him encouragement when he needs it. And that was a fantastic match to start off the finals, was it not? I suppose it was, the Cage said. But the crowd's restlessness is only partly due to the boys' victory. I'm sure for the experienced lords and shinobi leaders, the next match is the most anticipated one. Why do you say that? Sarutobi asked. The next match is between Sasuke and Gaara, Hokage-sama. Yamato answered for him. They're the favorites. Many people have actually placed bets on Konoha's Uchiha heir or Suna's untouchable ninja to see which one is stronger. Unfortunately, without the young Uchiha heir, it doesn't look like we'll be seeing that match. The Cage said with a sigh. Where is he, by the way? Yamato, Hayate. Sarutobi turned to the two with a questioning look in his eyes. With the possibility of Orochimaru and his men hiding within the village, it's not impossible for Sasuke to have been abducted. Hayate whispered to the Hokage. Of course, with Kakashi-senpai with him that is highly unlikely. Yamato cut in quickly. Even still, the fact remains that Sasuke has not shown up for his match. The rules state that he will have to be disqualified. I suppose there will be a lot disappointed gamblers today. The Hokage chuckled. I would have liked to see such a match myself, but... If I may make a suggestion, Hokage Dono. The trio of Konoha ninja turned towards the Cage. Perhaps it would be wise to give the Uchiha a little more time to show up, given the circumstances. XXXXX. Naruto smiled as he waited for the medics who were a bit late in their arrival to collect Dosu and take him to the medical ward. Dosu, who was now conscious again, leaned on the boy's shoulder as Naruto helped support his weight. With his free hand, Dosu rubbed the top of his head where the blonde had kicked him. Naruto chuckled when he noticed this. Sorry about that, did I kick you too hard? Naruto grinned. TCH, don't patronize me. Dosu grumbled, still annoyed with his loss. It was a good fight though. Whatever. Naruto smiled to himself despite Dosu's sour attitude. It had felt good to hear the crowd of villagers cheering for him again. His reception had been less enthusiastic than it had been when he fought against Neji, but that was to be expected. His match against Dosu had been more entertaining rather than dramatic and meaningful than his fight against Neji had been. Still, even if he had fought against Neji again, the villagers probably wouldn't treat him any differently than they had before. The tournament would earn him some recognition, sure, but he wouldn't be respected until after he saved Konoha from certain doom a few years into the future. Don't look so depressed, there's always next time, Naruto told Dosu in an attempt to console him. When you take the Chunin exams again you can pass with Kin and Zaku. That way, all three of you will become Chunin in one go. Naruto arched an eyebrow when Dosu didn't respond. The boy actually seemed to be a little put off by Naruto's words. What is it? Nothing. It's nothing. Dosu trailed off. Naruto's eyes narrowed at the sound Genin. Even though bandages covered most of his face, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki could tell that the boy was troubled. Was it something he had said? Was it something about the invasion? Dosu, if you've got something you want to get off your chest, I'm all ears. Naruto said, giving the boy a warm smile. Ah. Dosu started, but paused as he remembered his place. He couldn't tell an enemy anything, he knew that. His own concerns meant nothing when it came to Orochimaru-sama and his ambitions. Is it about Kin and Zaku? You worried they'll make fun of you for losing? Naruto joked, but also trying to fish for any valuable information. Naruto was a bit surprised when he felt Dosu's arm tense. It's about them, actually, Dosu began. Naruto, he was a friend. He was concerned about his teammates just like him because they were friends. There was no harm in telling him. Right. I mean, my sensei is rather strict when it comes to certain things. Dosu said, after Zaku and Kin failed in the preliminaries, he took them away so he could deal them appropriate punishment. Naruto's eyes widened. Sensei is really extreme sometimes and he hates failures, so I'm a little worried. Dosu admitted. After all, he had heard rumors about some of the things Orochimaru-sama did to those who failed him. Failures were disposable, and were taken care of accordingly. It actually made him a bit worried since he had lost his match against Naruto. As Dosu contemplated the possibility that Orochimaru might punish him for failing the exams, Naruto was having trouble keeping calm. He was well aware of how Orochimaru treated people and what he was capable of doing. Surely he wouldn't sacrifice his soldiers so readily, would he? He definitely would, Naruto thought with disdain, instantly fearing for Zaku and Kin's safety. Naruto was snapped out of his thoughts when the medics finally came and took Dosu away from him. Naruto promised to visit the boy in the wards later. His worry increased the more he thought about the other two sound ninja he had befriended. Had Zaku and Kin been? No, it wouldn't do him any good to worry about it now. He'd look into things later and maybe ask Anko or Haku to look into the matter. Right now, he had to focus on the finals and the invasion. That took priority over everything else at the moment. As he got closer to the balcony where the other genin were waiting, Naruto could hear his friends talking about the only missing participant. Geez, what the heck is Sasuke thinking? Shikamaru wondered aloud as he listened to the restless audience along with the other genin. He's not seriously gonna skip out on his match, is he? Don't be ridiculous, Sakura shouted, raising a fist at the lazy boy. He'll definitely be here. Sasuke-kun would never miss his own match. And yet, he has failed to show up. Neji pointed out with a mocking tone. The Uchiha heir will be disqualified at this rate. That's. Sakura perked up when she heard footsteps coming from the stairway. Sasuke-kun. A shock of blonde hair came into view. Sorry to disappoint you. Naruto grinned cheekily as Sakura fell to the floor. Naruto-kun, congratulations for winning your match. Hinata greeted her crush. You were really great out there. Heh, thanks Hinata. Naruto grinned, making the girl blush. Indeed, I was surprised by your resourcefulness by using earplugs to counter his sound attacks. Shino commented, I had not expected you to think ahead like that. Hey, I can pick up on things too. Naruto pouted, the way you say it makes me sound like an idiot. Naruto-kun can be a little absent-minded at times. Hinata giggled, joining her teammates in teasing Naruto. Oh, har, you laugh now, but I'll be the one laughing when I'm the one who wins this whole tournament. The future Hokage loses to no one. Naruto boasted confidently. He glanced toward Sakura who was looking towards the arena with a clouded look on her face. What? No congrats for you teammate. Oh, yeah, good job, Naruto. Sakura said half-heartedly. It was clear her mind was elsewhere. Sasuke hasn't showed up yet, huh? Naruto stated, knowing why Sakura acting so depressed. I'm just worried. What's taking him so long? Sakura said, turning towards her teammate. You don't think something's happened to him, do you? Even if they did run into trouble, which I'm sure they didn't. Naruto said quickly when he saw the look on the girl's face. Kakashi-sensei would take care of it. Even if that's the case, if Sasuke's not here then he's not here. That's that. Many have been looking forward to seeing Sasuke-san and Gaara of the Desert's match. Many spectators will be disappointed if their demands are not met. Shino noted, it was clear to everyone what the crowd wanted if their loud demands and cries for the next match to start were anything to go by. Kankuro and Temari shifted nervously in place as the Konoha genin talked amongst themselves. They both glanced at Gaara who was staring down into the arena with an unreadable expression on his face. The Suna siblings couldn't help but wonder if Gaara had killed the Uchiha himself since he had targeted him before the exams had even started. If he had, that would completely ruin their plans for the invasion. She was so caught up in her own troubling thoughts of Gaara's supposed actions, Temari had completely forgotten about the Gaara whom she had seen casually enjoying a barbecued meal with a team of Konoha genin a few days ago. Gaara remained indifferent to his siblings' worried reactions. All he did was stand in place and keep that expressionless, bloodthirsty mask pasted on his face. I'll bet he's getting special treatment again if we've already waited this long for him to turn up. Naruto frowned, crossing his arms. Seriously, if it was any of us who had been late we would have immediately been disqualified. That was another thing that still annoyed Naruto. Sasuke always got special treatment no matter what. This fact was compensated by Sasuke being less of an arrogant, antisocial ass in this new life, but it was still irritating. As if answering to Naruto's claim, the Hokage's voice suddenly rang out across the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the contestants of the second round has not shown up as of yet. Therefore, we will continue with the next set of matches. I guess they've decided to postpone Sasuke's match for now, Shikamaru said in mild surprise. I totally called it, Naruto said dryly. So then the next match will be, Hinata started as her eyes grew wide. Would Hinata and Neji Hyuga please come down for their match? Genma called from inside the arena. HMPH. This match will be over quickly, Neji stated as he headed towards the stairs. He threw a withering glare at Hinata as he departed. My victory has already been decided. The rest of the Konoha genin who remained glared at the boys retreating back. Clearly his attitude was rubbing each of them the wrong way, Naruto especially. Hinata took a few deep breaths before nodding determinedly to herself and following after her cousin. Hinata, wait. Hinata stopped when she felt someone grab her hand and pull her back. Her eyes widened and her cheeks lit up when Naruto wrapped his arms around her body and gave her a tight squeeze. Good luck in your match. Naruto grinned as he released the blushing girl. I know you can beat him. Promise me you'll fight your hardest and you know. I believe in you. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck as he said this. She had said the same words to him many times in the past, so it felt fitting to give the same kind of encouragement now. To be honest, it was a little embarrassing for him especially when he was doing it in front of his friends, but Hinata needed it. I'll do my best. Hinata promised him as she fought back her blush. Hinata glanced at her friends that stood behind Naruto. Sakura and Shikamaru smiled at her while Shino gave her an encouraging nod. Hinata returned the smile Naruto gave her before heading down the stairway into the arena. As she descended down the stairs, the Hyuga heiress expression turned resolute. I'll show them, Naruto-kun. Hinata whispered softly to herself. I'll show Neji, Hanabi, my father, everyone, that I am someone worthy of being acknowledged. Back in the genin spectator balcony, Sakura looked down at Neji who had already made it into the arena. Neji was Rookie of the Year before Sasuke, wasn't he? Sakura asked, and he seemed like a strong fighter in the preliminaries. He is considered a prodigy among the Hyuga clan and is definitely strong. Shino said, pushing up his shades a bit. Not only that, but he holds a certain animosity towards Hinata because of relations within the clan itself. If he plans to take out his frustrations on her, I worry for Hinata's safety. She was always reserved and quiet back in the academy. Shikamaru commented as he leaned against the railing. Do you guys really think she can beat her cousin? Of course she can. Don't go underestimating Hinata like that. Naruto exclaimed loudly. He raised his fists in the air when he saw Hinata walk out into the arena. Woo-hoo, go Hinata, kick his ass, yeah. Think she can hear you? Shikamaru complained, twirling his pinky finger inside his ear. Naruto ignored him. The only thing he was focusing on was cheering for the girl who had always supported him. It was time he returned the favor. XXXXX. Somewhere in the audience was a special reserved area for the entirety of the Hyuga clan to sit and watch the finals. Most of the lower branch members sat near the front and back while the main branch members and Hyuga elders sat in the center. Hanabi leaned forward in her seat as she watched her sister walk out onto the arena. Oni-chan, Hanabi whispered to herself. Would her sister even be a match for her cousin? She remembered that boy's words. What that Naruto person had told her. Just trust me, Hanabi-chan. When the finals come around, you'll see how great your sister is. I promise. Could she really believe those words? Naruto had seemed really confident when he said it, and Hinata had definitely grown stronger, but... Watch closely, Hanabi, Hiyashi said, breaking his daughter out of her thoughts. Neji has gone farther than any other lower branch member has before. I can honestly say that he might be the strongest genin here. He has the edge that your sister lacks. Observe this battle and you shall learn much. Yes, father. Hanabi nodded stoically as she looked at the two Hyuga members face off against one another. She silently prayed for her sister not to embarrass herself in front of the clan or in front of the Konoha and its assembled guests. Hiyashi, meanwhile, was lost in his own thoughts. It was clear who the victor of the match would be. As much as it irritated him to admit, Hinata was not fit to fight her cousin. She was weak. Neji was everything Hiyashi wished his oldest daughter could be, bar his extreme hatred for the main branch family, even if it might have been justified. Really, Hiyashi wanted to encourage his daughter. He wanted to believe there was some chance of her winning. But how could he give her support when she would only fail? Hiyashi closed his eyes. As a father, it disgusted him when he thought this of his own daughter. Hopefully Hinata-sama will put up somewhat of a fight against Neji. An elder sitting beside Hiyashi told him quietly. It would be troubling if a member of the lower branch humiliated a main branch member in front of this crowd. Hiyashi felt like punching him. Indeed, Hiyashi said tonelessly, I hope my daughter will not disappoint us. In the end, that was his only response. How else could he respond? He couldn't defend his daughter because of one simple fact. She was weak. He silently wondered if that would ever change. XXXXX. Alright, you two ready? Genma asked as Hinata took her place opposite of Neji. Just start the match, Neji commanded as he glared at his cousin. Hey, show a little respect, twerp. The Tokubetsu Jonin frowned. He glanced at Hinata. You got anything to add to that? I'm ready whenever, Hinata said softly. All right then. Genma nodded and lifted his hand. Hinata took her gentle fist stance as she readied herself for battle. Neji, however, stood in place and made no move to get ready. He simply continued to glare at his cousin. Okay, skipping over the second round for now, Genma mumbled that part to himself. Third round of the Chunin exam finals. Genma's hand came down. Begin. I honestly didn't expect to face you, Hinata-sama. Especially here in the finals of this exam. Neji said. Life is surprising sometimes, Ni-san. Hinata replied, though she made no effort to move. She only kept her stance as she met her cousin's hateful glare with a calm stare. HMPH. Neji bit back the comment he was about to say as he quickly put a rein on his anger for now. Before we begin, I would give you a chance to forfeit this fight. Why? Hinata asked. Someone like you can never become a Chunin. Neji said, condemning and judging her with his eyes. You are too soft. You are weak. You are too dependent on others and have absolutely no confidence in yourself or your abilities. Chances are that you only participated in this exam so your teammates could. You are a spoiled member of the main family, and while you may think you have changed thanks to your participation or whatever kind of training you've gone through this month, let me tell you now that it is worthless. No matter how hard one tries, they will never change. A loser will always be a loser. That is something that will never change. Just like how I am of the lower branch of the Hyuga clan, and you are of the main branch. The crowd listened silently to the Hyuga prodigy as he spoke to his cousin. His words were harsh and cold, and everyone could hear the bitterness in his voice as he spoke. Give up, Neji demanded with finality. You cannot change your fate. Just accept it and face reality, Hinata-sama. Neji's eyes widened when instead of cowering away or getting angry, Hinata gave him a warm smile. You know, at one point I would have agreed with you, Ni-san. Hinata smiled. I would have accepted your words for fact and probably forfeited the match, just like you had asked. I would have been a good little heiress and quietly admitted that I was weak, helpless, and probably would never change. If you had told me the same thing a month ago, if we had fought in the preliminaries, I just might have given up. I would run away just as I have always been used to doing. Hinata closed her eyes. She reopened them and stared her cousin in the eye with her Byakugan flaring. But she turned her head a bit, smiling at the boy who was grinning back down at her as he cheered. The heiress turned back towards her cousin. I won't back down, Hinata declared as she glared at her cousin. Despite what you say, I have changed. I used to be weak. I was the heiress of the famous Hyuga clan and even my own little sister could beat me with little to no effort whatsoever. But thanks to the support my precious people have given me, I've finally started to stand on my own 2 feet. I have people who believe in me, so I won't even think about letting them down by giving up here. I'll fight to the best of my abilities so that I can show them that they weren't wrong in acknowledging me. And also, Neji saw it. For the first time, he clearly saw that look in her eyes. Hinata's eyes showed a resolve and determined he thought he'd never see in the formerly weak and shy heiress. I will make you acknowledge me too, Neji-Nisan. Neji gritted his teeth together as he slid into his gentle fist stance as well. He activated his Byakugan as his lavender eyes glared sharply at her cousin. TCH. Very well then, Neji spat. I am not responsible for what happens to you then, Hinata-sama. It was at that moment that the third round of the Chunin exams truly began. The two Hyugas were blurs as they shot towards each other. Their palms flew out towards each other, each hand aimed at a chakra point with the intent to shut down the target's chakra system. Both of their left hands instantly shot out to block the incoming right hand of the opposing fighter, almost mirroring their blocks. The next wave of attacks were a flurry of strikes almost too fast for the regular human eye to track. Palm thrusts, kicks, sweeps, punches. All were either avoided or blocked, sending burst after burst of chakra harmlessly into the air. Neji would admit that Hinata was keeping up with him quite well, but it was clear who the superior in their clan's fight style was, and while her strikes came close, none managed to hit him. And while the defense she was putting up was formidable, it wasn't perfect like his. She had openings, which to his annoyance and astonishment were rare to show themselves, but he acted the minute he saw them. Hinata knew that too. Neji may have been called a prodigy, but he had worked for years so he could truly master the gentle fist style, or at least come close to it. It was arguably Konoha's strongest fighting style, and her cousin excelled in it. She honestly hadn't expected to match him when she had only started training seriously or even gained the confidence to in the first place, in just these past few months. Hinata bit her lip as she felt another tenketsu point in her left arm shut down. She couldn't afford to let this go on at this rate. Hinata's leg shot out at her cousin's leg like a whip, forcing the boy to jump back to avoid it. She was given plenty of time to flip backwards and put some distance between her and Neji. She frowned and rolled up her sleeves, takes note of the red spots on her arms. She counted 2 on her right arm and 4 on the left. 6 in total. Neji growled under his breath as he watched Hinata check on her arms. He couldn't believe he was only able to accomplish so little. Even still, it would slow her down some and help crush her guard. Once he had sealed more of her tenketsu he could move in. His eyes narrowed in frustration when Hinata suddenly punched her own chakra into her own tenketsu point. With his Byakugan he could plainly see that the chakra node had been reopened. I knew that even after training to my fullest this past month, I couldn't hope to match you in close combat gentle fist fighting. Expecting not to get hit was too much to hope for, Hinata said as she punched her chakra into another closed node and reopened it. So I asked Sakura for some medical tips and combined that with knowledge of our clan's techniques to find a quick way to unlock my tenketsu during battle. This way, I can recover quickly if you only seal a few of my chakra points. It does feel kind of sore afterwards though. You think that's going to help you? Neji smirked as he readied himself once more. I won't give you the opportunity. If I seal enough of your chakra points, you won't even have the energy to move. Hinata didn't answer. She just grabbed a few kunai from her pouch and threw them at her cousin. Neji chuckled as he sidestepped, easily avoiding the kunai that were thrown his way. He jumped around the arena as Hinata emptied her pouch trying to hit her cousin. What were you hoping to accomplish with this, Hinata-sama? Neji mocked her, amused that she actually thought this meaningless attack could hurt him. You should know that with the Byakugan, kunai and shuriken are easily. Neji's eyes narrowed when he realized his own carelessness. A small hissing sound crackled in his ears as 4 kunai flew towards him. Damn! Neji pivoted and started spinning just as the explosive notes attached to the kunai went off. The explosion consumed Neji, but the smoke quickly cleared as it was swept away by a spinning dome of chakra. To the crowd's amazement and the Hyuga clan's outrage, Neji was performing the Kaden flawlessly. So you do know it after all, Hinata smiled to herself as she gazed at Neji's rotation that had protected him from the blast. Her cousin sure was amazing. Child's play, Neji scoffed. He glared at his cousin from across the arena. Is this truly the extent of the main branch's power? Not the main branch's, mine. Hinata corrected him, surprising Neji with her glare. And don't think for a minute that this is all I have to show you. I meant it when I said I had gotten stronger. Foolishness. Don't think you can hide behind this bravado. You are a failure, Neji scoffed. Do you honestly think you've gotten stronger? Just because a few people encouraged you that suddenly makes you strong. It is your destiny to be weak. Why do you hide behind that stupid philosophy of yours? Hinata asked in a sharp tone, surprising Neji with her harsh words. You are so much stronger than that, Ni-san. How can you call me a weakling when you blame all your trouble and misfortune on something so contrived as destiny and fate? You're not someone weak like that. Are you mocking me? Neji shouted angrily. Are you actually calling me weak? Not at all. You are very strong, Neji. Hinata admitted. You're strong enough to know Kaden. But all this talk of destiny and how one can't change. Aren't you contradicting yourself? What? Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but Kaden is a technique that is supposed to be exclusive to the main branch family, yet you know it, Hinata pointed out. So if it was already decided that a lower branch member couldn't use Kaden, why can you? Don't you dare criticize me. I'm not. Learning such an advanced technique shows how powerful you are, so I want to know why you believe in such a petty thing like fate when that only makes you weaker. Shut up, failure, Neji roared. A loser like you has no right to talk down to me. Don't act all high and mighty when you have never once done anything to prove your worth to the Hyuga clan or to the village. Don't you dare. I'm not making fun of you, Hinata insisted. I'm trying to tell you that you can change your fate, just like I have. People can change, Ni-san. That's cute. You honestly believe that, don't you? Neji sneered. He rushed forward towards the girl. I'll give you a good taste of reality. I'll show you how weak your ideals are. Just as Neji's hands moved forward to strike, Hinata started her rotation. Neji's eyes widened when he realized what she was doing. Neji moved his arms in front of him to block. Kaden. Neji was propelled backwards when the dome of chakra crashed into him. He quickly recovered himself and landed on his feet, though his arms had gone numb for a few moments. He was lucky that he had only caught the edge of Kaden, or that would have been messy. Hinata stopped spinning, turned towards her cousin, spreading her arms out. "I was able to do the Kaden, just like you," Hinata said as she steadied herself. "Could I weakling pull off an advanced technique like that? Do you still think I haven't changed?" "Rubbish. You think learning that move has changed anything for you?" Neji growled. "No matter how hard you try, the end result will never change. I'll admit, you might have gained some strength, but you are still a failure who could never hope to beat me. That's your fate. Just accept that there is no way of changing it." "So that's it then?" Hinata asked quietly. "If I have any hope of getting through to you, I'm going to have to beat you then." "You beat me? You must be joking." Neji smirked. "Knowing Kaden won't make a difference, and you've already admitted to being my inferior in Gentle Fist. Do you honestly think you can win?" "It's true. I may not be able to win if it's just Gentle Fist." Hinata agreed. Neji arched an eyebrow at her as she assumed a strange stance with her arms crossed in front of her. "So I'll have to use my own techniques to beat you." "Your own techniques? Watch me, Ni-san," Hinata said as she slid back into her familiar stance. "Watch and see how strong I've grown. I'll show you that I'm not the weakling I once was." Big words, but hollow all the same. Neji smirked as he assumed his Gentle Fist stance. Face reality and realize that there's no way to change your destiny of being a failure. Just as he moved to rush his cousin, Neji felt something wet on his cheek. He raised his hand to wipe his cheek and was surprised to see blood coating his fingers. His hand flew to his face again to feel for a wound. His cheek had split open. XXXXX. "Hey, what's wrong with him?" Sakura asked. "Why'd Neji suddenly stop like that?" "Hinata hit him," Shino stated. "Huh, how? She's on the other side of the arena," Sakura protested. "No, she definitely got him," Shikamaru nodded, squinting his eyes as he tried to figure out what the heiress had done. "I just don't know how. Hinata's just gonna prove to Neji how strong she really is." Naruto smirked, gaining his friend's attention. "They call Neji a prodigy and a genius when Hinata deserves that title too. Neji is pretty good when it comes to taijutsu, but he doesn't have Hinata's determination or flexibility." "Flexibility? What does that have to do with it?" Sakura asked her teammate. Hinata knew that she couldn't beat him with just the moves she knew. Neji knows even more about Gentle Fist than she does, so Hinata had to come up with her own way of beating him. Naruto grinned. "Which is using techniques only she could perform," Naruto declared. "But you just said Neji knew more Gentle Fist than she did," Sakura said with exasperation. "These aren't Gentle Fist moves, Sakura," Naruto said proudly. "That may have been their foundation, but these are moves Hinata created all on her own. Just watch, you'll see." "And you really think those will be enough to beat her cousin?" Shikamaru asked, arching an eyebrow at the blonde. Naruto smiled and turned back towards the arena to watch. If it was anyone else fighting Neji, their victory would have been a maybe. But he knew Hinata would win. Prove it to him, Hinata. Show him that someone's fate can change. Not only for Neji's sake, but for Naruto's as well. XXXXX. "What did you do?" Neji asked. His eyes widened when he felt the skin on his arm get pierced. He glanced down to see that a long cut had appeared on his forearm. Had she thrown something at him? No, he would have been able to see it if that had been the case. Neji hissed when another cut appeared on his leg. He gritted his teeth together as he strained his Byakugan to see what was cutting him. He saw it. Neji jumped to the side. A small pebble that had been kicked up when he moved split in two. Chakra, Neji thought in astonishment. It was thin, small, barely noticeable, even with his Byakugan. But it was chakra, tiny and long, in the shape of needle, and they were being shot at him. He looked up at his cousin who had her hands extended towards him. "How are you?" Neji veered his head to the right as he saw another needle propel towards him. It was fast. He winced as it cut the skin just under his right eye. "Chakra needle technique," Hinata announced as she narrowed her eyes at him. "By focusing my chakra outside my body, I can form it into the shape of needles and shoot it towards someone. Without the Byakugan, it would be very difficult to dodge. You think cuts and scratches are something to be proud of? This is nothing," Neji declared as he rushed towards the girl. His hands flared a bright blue color as he gathered the chakra in his hands. "I'm ending this now." Neji winced as he felt a stinging pain in his left shoulder. This was ridiculous. How could she perform such a technique? Still, it was useless if he got close enough. He felt 2 more needles hit his thigh. He could ignore them. They weren't even that bad. The pain was minimal. 2 more close to his knee. The wounds weren't deep. They weren't even bleeding too badly and he was getting close. 1 more in his leg. She was within his range. He could strike. Neji's eyes went wide when his right leg suddenly gave out underneath him, causing him to stumble. His Byakugan shot down to his right leg and was shocked to find that a fair number of tenketsu in his leg were shut down. It wasn't enough to impede movement, but enough to make him stumble. Those needles were. Neji gasped when he released those needles had been aimed at his tenketsu. He panicked when Hinata started to spin. Shit. Neji began his rotation as well, too close to get away from her in time. He started expelling chakra from his tenketsu, noting with some surprise that the ones she had sealed with her needles immediately burst back open with little to no effort. Kaden met Kaden in a bright flash of blue. Neji and Hinata kept spinning as their domes of chakra crashed against each other. Their chakra was grinding, pressing, smashing, clawing against the others as they kept up their rotation. Both could feel the strain of keep up their Kaden under such pressure. Neji, for his part, was growing increasingly more frustrated. Damn it, how? Neji thought furiously. Why now? Why is she so strong now? Hinata is a weakling. She is a failure. How is it possible that she can? He was expending too much chakra. He couldn't keep this up. Damn it, Neji seethed as he picked up the speed in his rotation. Don't overestimate yourself, you loser. His Kaden crashed back into Hinata's with renewed vigor. He heard his cousin gasp as her Kaden broke and her rotation stopped. Neji smiled grimly when he felt his cousin's body hit the dome and get repelled off it, throwing her to the ground a few feet away. Neji stopped spinning and glared at his cousin who lied motionless on the ground. Faye, like I said, you can't go against destiny. Neji scowled. Proctor, call the match. This fight is not over yet. Neji's scowl deepened when he noticed Hinata shakily stand on her feet again. He felt his anger increase when he saw that look in her eyes again. Don't you get it yet? Any more and will only hurt you. Neji said. Give up. No, not until you understand. Hinata gasped. That attack had hit her hard. The front of her body was numb and her ears were ringing, but she